Hey, everybody, what's up? Happy Sunday to you. I'm going to close this door just because it drives me nuts to see it open for some reason. I don't know why. Happy Sunday to you all. Right out of the gate, Chris Petro says it's his son's his 8-year-old son's, he's going to be 8, I guess, on Monday. And that he's going to flip if we all wish him a happy birthday. If I wish him a happy birthday, but everybody else too. So everybody else, Chris's son, happy birthday. I wish I knew your name. What's your boy's name, Chris? I hope he has a great birthday on Monday. And is he a guitar player? I wonder. Yeah, all right, you guys. What happened this week? I put out a couple videos this week for the Danelectro Eisenhower Fuzz. That was a really fun pedal that has kind of 2 settings on it, MIDI or less MIDI, and an octave that really jumps out. This is a cool pedal. So that was a fun one to make. As well as a video for those condenser mics that I think I talked about last week. The GC brand Sterling SL230s, I believe they're called. It's a really, really nice condenser mics for $150 for a pair. Anyway, I couldn't believe how cheap they are because they sound really good. All right, what do I got coming this week? I just want to show you this stuff really quick. This is an interesting pedal. Have you guys seen these? It's more than just a pedal. It's actually a preamp. So I'm almost done a video for these that I'm going to put out in a couple days. They make 3 different ones. It's Victory, and these are 2 preamps in pedals, basically. And what happens is you can either take the output, or you plug your guitar into it, and then you take the output, go right into your amp, and use it like you would a pedal, right? But you could also take the output and go into a power amp, I guess, and use it like a big tube preamp, because it is a full-on tube preamp. Or using some of the other jacks here, you can interface it with an amp with an effects loop. So you go into the pedal, out of the pedal into the front of the amp, out of the effects end of the amp into here, and out of here back to the effects return. And then what happens is when you hit the bypass switch on and off, you're either using this as the front end to your tube amplifier, or you're using more solid state amplifier, I guess, as long as it's got an effects loop, or you're using your amp's front end. So you can switch this preamp in and out and bypass your amp's preamp. So it allows you to do some interesting things. If you've got an amp, like say a Fender amp that has a great clean sound, but it's got an effects loop and it doesn't have a great overdrive sound, you could add something like this Kraken pedal and have a real cool, heavy, modern, high gain preamp. You can essentially turn that little Fender combo or whatever you've got into a 3-channel amp with some gain channels. So that's pretty neat, I think. Alternately, there's another one over here. I can't show you it right now because it's plugged in on the desk, all wired in, but it's called the Countess, and it looks the same basically. And it is the one designed with Guthrie Govan. It's got a gain channel and a clean channel. So maybe I was thinking if you had like a JCM 800 or an amp like that that's got an effects loop, but you don't like the clean sound, or it's not that you don't like the clean sound, but it's a kind of a one-trick pony in that it's just one channel. You could add a second gain channel as well as a clean channel to your amplifier using the Countess version of it. So anyway, interesting pedals. My video primarily focuses on that one that I just showed you, the Kraken model. And I'm using it with the PT15, integrating it with the effects loop and stuff like that. So I can either use my amp's front end or use that for the front end. Anyway, that's coming this week pretty soon. Let's see what you guys got to say this week. Let's see. John has a question about UAD console, which is the sort of input interface when you're using a UAD interface. It's how do I describe it? UA console is like if you want to run effects in front of your DAW or like an amp sim or something using UAD effects, you do that in UA console, and then it's like the first thing that your signal hits when it's coming into the computer. And you're asking if you're using a UAD product, you're asking, is there a way to record what you are sending to an aux with the UAD console? And the answer is not that I have found. Within UAD console, you can configure it so that you can send out to some delay or reverb or whatever you want. So let's say you're cutting a vocal and you want to add some delay and reverb in the headphones so that you've got a nice sound, to sing to. or maybe acoustic guitar and you want to add some reverb or something like that. And I believe your question is, can you record that reverb into your DAW that's getting sent out via an aux in UAD console? And the answer is, I haven't figured out how to do that. I don't think so. I think that they're only for kind of effects that you would want to listen to while you're tracking for kind of ear candy or whatever. Of course, the workaround is in your DAW, if you've got you know, a nice sound up or whatever with a delay or a reverb or whatever the effects that you're using, just add them on an aux send in your DAW. Like simply copy, like store the preset or whatever of that particular reverb sound you like or delay or whatever, add them in the DAW. I know it would be nice to just be able to track them though. And I don't think there is a way, I could be wrong, but I thought about that as well. And I haven't been able to find a way to do it. Alrighty, let's see. Anyone else in the Robert Baker stream an hour ago, says Ian. Does Robert do one Sunday mornings too? I should go check out Robert's. I didn't know that he does it on Sundays. I think a lot of people kind of do. Glenn Sobel's been doing them, my drummer friend, on Sundays as well. It's a kind of a good day to do it, I think. Everybody's home and you got time to chill. Let's see. John Hutch says he's thinking of getting an aux, but wondering if they have an update, facelift, cheaper version plan. What do I think? I don't know. It's a good question. I haven't heard anything, and it's not like sometimes I hear about things from them a little bit before they come out, you know, but I'm not a super insider or something. I don't work for UAD, so not really sure, but good question. I kind of think that it's only been out for, you know, it was introduced last NAMM, so it hasn't been out that long. And the reality is, I think they're kind of probably, you know, due for a software update at some point. I'd love to see some more cabs, particularly a Vintage 30 cabinet. I think they kind of need to do that. Sam Andrews is up in the top chat. He's in England, in the UK. And he says, good morning, and cider's on me. Thank you. Appreciate that. Great to see you break out the SG recently. Can you talk a bit about that guitar? That's right. So the other thing I put out this week was my Angus Young video lesson, because I was on an Angus kick this week, which is really fun. And can I talk a bit about that guitar? How's it set up, or any upgrades? I haven't done anything to that guitar. It's totally stock, and it's a late 90s or maybe a 2000 SG standard. You know, the kind they would sell for like $8.99. You'd see them routinely back then for not a lot of money. It's a good guitar. And when I heard it this week, it definitely has that sound. I mean, like okay, so that guitar I used to use primarily for alternate tuned Soundgarden songs when I played with Chris Cornell, and I used it on, I had it strung with a certain string gauges and all tuned to E's and B's. So it was for the song "Day I Tried to Live" and My Wave as well. Where like My Wave is a great big power chord, right? And it's just one finger that goes all the way across the neck, and that's how you play that riff. And so the Soundgarden, they'd actually, you know, put the right string gauges on so you could have all E's and B's all the way across, and it was just this great big humongous power chord sound. It was cool. Day I Tried to Live, same thing. Anyway, long story short, that's what I used that guitar for, and it still had those strings on it up until about last week. And I remember leaving like a fresh set of strings on it and lending it to Chris Cornell, and just leaving it with him for a couple of years and saying, if you want to, you know, here's that guitar and that tuning, like I'm not using it. You should just use it if you want to. And I don't think he ever did, and he eventually just gave it back to me. But and so when I got it the other day, I'd put it in my storage when he gave it back to me, and I hadn't used it in like 8 years or something, or 7 years. And I pulled it out the other day to do this Angus thing, and I was like, oh my God, I got to take these strings off and then clean the frets and get it all set up and stuff like that. So that took a couple hours because it was a mess, but it ended up sounding just great. You know, you got to use Big Ben's nut sauce in the nuts on those guitars, because otherwise they just go out of tune. It was really hard to keep in tune at first. Then I put some of that you guys know that Big Ben's always lube your nuts, kids. It's the Big Ben's nut sauce that goes in the nut on Gibson guitars, and it keeps them in tune. It's just like slippery stuff. Diodario makes a similar product. It's like a you know, it's just I don't know if it's graphite based or what it is, but you put it in there and it helps the guitar stay in tune. Okay, coffee fun, says Jeff Rupert. He's up in the top chat. The Kraken pedal, does it use an adapter for power or regular IEC cable? It uses kind of a high voltage power supply because it's all tube. So the deal with these pedals is that they're all tube and they run the tubes at high voltage using what does it say? It's kind of hard to read. 12 volt DC, and it's like 1,000 milliamps or something. So it needs the proper adapter in order to run the tubes at the right voltage. And what they told me at the NAMM show was that they found all these new old stock Mullard tubes that aren't 12AX7s. There's some other kind of tube, and they found a massive stash of them, and they're all really great. So they decided to tried to build a circuit around these tubes that are not sort of a typical amplifier tube or something that we would normally use. And that's what those pedals are using, is these different kinds. So they're all in these new old stock tubes, run at high voltage and using this, you know, kind of beefy 12 volt power supply. So long story short, you're not going to be able to run it, I don't think, off of like something that you would put on a pedal board, like a, you know, power supply, pedal board power supply. You probably have to use the one that they provide. But that's the price you pay for that tube goodness. Moving down a little bit here. Thanks for doing the top chat, by the way. I appreciate that. And your question, I hope that answers it. And they're all quite different, the ones I've tried. There's 3 of them. The Kraken is my favorite. There's the Sheriff, which is kind of doing a more like kind of low gain or plexi kind of classic rock thing. And then the Countess, which is the Guthrie Govan one, which is sort of a darker voiced pedal with a clean channel and a gain channel as well. By darker, I mean it's just got a smooth kind of lead tone, whereas the Kraken is like high gain, modern, and it's my favorite. It actually sounds really great with my PT15. It does like a nice alternate gain sound to the sound in the amp. You know, I would use that for tracking some modern stuff. It's pretty neat. It was done with Rabia, you know, the guitar player that plays with I'm saying his name right, I think I am. The guitar player that plays with Frog Leap Leo. And he's got a great YouTube channel as well. And I guess it's kind of his signature pedal, I think. Alrighty, what else we got here? Jeff Rupert says, everyone liked this video before he even comes on. It helps. Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate that. Do I miss having an outside view in my new studio? That's a good question. A little bit. You know, I didn't have an outside view in my old studio. You guys saw me do a lot of videos from home for a while. And I did have windows there, and that was great. I have yet to sort of set up and really use that same set. I do have my home setup. You know, I'm just planning on not really having any amps there or anything, or at the most the PT15. I'd love to have one of those there at home. But other than that, I'll still have my, you know, that sort of similar setup that I had with some Dyne audio monitors and my little Apollo Twin and a little home rig that I can do stuff at home with. I just didn't want to have, you guys saw it was getting to be like a normal, like with amps piling up and pedals. And I don't want that there. I want to keep it like, I want to keep my home like really just minimal and kind of organized and stuff. And then this is the main place where I come to work. So yeah, do I miss a window? It'd be great to have a window in here, but it's just not reality. You know, things aren't perfect in LA with, if you're just a working musician, it's like, it's, you know, just renting space is expensive, you know. It's a really expensive city to live in now, and just I'm grateful to have this space that I can do things in, and it's a reasonable deal, and I'm just really happy, and you know, yeah, I'm fortunate to have to have a space where I can come work and do stuff. But it'd be great to have windows, obviously. I'll never forget going to do this rehearsal with this girl that needed a guitar player to play some of her songs back before I had anything going on, like in this town. And I had, you know, I was just looking to do anything. And she was a young songwriter, like going out to, you know, play in the clubs or whatever. And so anyway, she needed a guitar player. So I went to rehearse at her house, and she gave me this address to go to. And she lived with her boyfriend, and it was in Malibu. And I went there. This dude had this house that was like up on the top of this hill with like a pool on the top of it, like, and like a, like, you know, 270-degree view of the Pacific Ocean on the top of this mountain in Malibu. And just like this was going way back in the mid 90s, going back to then, but with these beautiful windows. And he had a studio. I remember he had one of those Ensoniq consoles, like a newer kind of digital console that had just come out, and the view was just like that's where we went in to rehearse. And I was like, this is some next level shit, top level. But that was the dream, obviously. I was like, well, okay, this is where you'd want to arrive someday if you could make it work. He probably did, music for film and TV or something. I don't know. But it was quite a place. Quite a place with its view. Lauren Tyrrell's got music. He says, greetings. Hello, good sir. Did folks see the AC/DC? David Smith is asking, AC/DC video I put up this week. Yeah, I had fun doing that video. I started thinking about Angus and his soloing style. That video's done really well. It got like about 20,000 views in one day, which was awesome. And I'm glad people like it. He's just such a neat guitar player, with so much, I don't know, people respond so much still to those songs, and its simplicity and raw power. We got almost 400 people online. That's awesome. 398 and 11:30. Very good. I'm glad to be here with you guys. And let's see. I'm moving down through the chat. Steven says me and Britt sounded great. She was playing drums on the AC/DC stuff. Yeah, she's got really good feel on the kit. She does. She's got a great, rock and roll groove for sure. Mark's in the top chat, and thank you, Mark. I appreciate that. He didn't ask a question or anything like that, but he's just up there. Something else. Ben is up in the top chat, and he says, "Hi, Pete. Any thoughts on an Ibanez Fireman?" I've played one a little bit. I know somebody that was kind of involved with those guitars, and they were asking me at one point if I wanted to kind of like get one from Ibanez and play it a lot and stuff. And of course, I'm a Sir guy, and it was like, well, I can't really, I can't really endorse another guitar. I have I didn't have a signature guitar when that question came up, but I think they're kind of neat. I mean, I love that they're different, and pretty cool looking. It's a neat guitar. They have a really big neck, really big fat neck on them, as I remember. Mark says news I don't have. He says I can confirm an aux 2 is in development from a UA employee. Rack mountable and XLRs, like some different features. That's interesting. He's probably not supposed to tell that. UA likes to keep stuff under wraps for sure, but I don't know anything about it. I haven't heard a thing about it. Let's see. If we get the aux, we didn't get as much functionality as what? Androids and Windows users. I don't know what that means. But anyway, you're just saying they teased that they're going to update it, so it's coming, but that's from Amar. Yeah, I don't know anything about when there's updates coming. I would have thought they would have done some cab updates by now and stuff. But, the reality is there's great sounds in it. My favorite cabs in the aux, if anybody out there uses it, are the two greenback ones, the punch and thick cabs. They're both great. The Bassman 410 is great. The open back 112 deluxe cabinet is really nice. It's kind of a warmer, clean thing. And the Bassman's quite bright. So between the two of those, I can get my Fendery stuff covered, I find. And the only thing that I feel like and the 212 Vox C cabinet called the Honkin' Silvers or something like that. It's really good too. The only thing I really find I'm missing is the V30 thing. That would be great to have. And there's just not a V30 cab yet. So, and you can always bypass the internal cab sims and just go IRs in your DAW or whatever if you want to, just as a workaround for now if you want to do a V30 thing. JJ Kane says, "Hey Pete, can other IRs be loaded into the PT15?" Yes, sir. You can do it easily. So you just plug in the USB. There's a USB jack on the back of the amp, and you plug it in. Just a standard USB cable, and the drive. It's not a drive, but it is a drive. It's basically flash memory, and it shows up on your desktop as a little hard drive. And you just go in there and you pull the pull the cabinets out in the slots that you don't want to use, or wherever you want to replace like one slot. You just go in there and drag your file in. Next time you cycle the amp on and off, your file will be in there in the slot. So yeah, long story short, it's super duper easy to put your own IRs in the PT15. And let's see. Braxall says, Pete, what's my opinion on the radial amp switcher for 2 amps? Is it any good? Yeah, it works well for 2 amps. It's just a simple 2 amps into 1 out switcher. So it's great for live, or if you've just got a very simple home setup where you'd like to maybe you could either use a cab or a reactive load or something like that, and you could use the radial to switch between the 2 amps going into 1 load, and that will alleviate having to plug in cables and stuff. It's very, primarily I think they probably designed it as a live device, but you could use it for studio as well. And I used to use it on the road and it worked fine. I used it with a divided by 13 head and a PT100. I used to switch. I had forgot that I did this for about 6 months or a year, good long touring cycle. I used a divided by 13 RSA 31 head in addition to my first version of the PT100 amps. So, and by doing that, I had a Fendery clean, and then I had the divided by 13 for kind of a AC30 kind of grinded up thing that I used to use on songs with Chris Cornell, like Say Hello to Heaven, like that intro, that arpeggiated picking intro. I would play with the divided by 13, and I would use the radial amp switcher to go to it. So it worked well in my rig. It was cool. Jennifer's in the top chat. Hi, Jennifer. What's up? She sent me $5. You're too kind, Jennifer. Thank you. Yeah. Let's see. What else we got here? What else we got here? Moving down. How do you get your favorite distortion sound? EVH overdrive, something else? That's James. My favorite distortion sound is my amp. I really love, there's some great pedals out now, and it's really come a long way, but primarily I'm a user of amp distortion, Marshall style amp distortion. That's really what my amp is based around, is a Marshall-y kind of gain channel, and originally, when we did the 100-watt amp, it was really important to me to have the EL34s and the plexi style output transformer and kind of do Marshall, based tones to the max, and then have a great clean channel too. So, that was, I always feel like the clean gets compromised a little bit with the EL34s. That Fendery sparkly beautiful thing doesn't quite happen with the EL34s, but you can get really, really close. And that's what my amp has, the 100-watt version. And the neat thing about the 15 is you've got 6v6s, which is a great tube clean, I think. So, some might argue that the just because it's lower wattage doesn't mean anything. The new amp may have a superior clean sound, the 15-watt, to even my bigger amp, possibly for some people. It does that 6v6 sparkly, Fendery thing really well. Let's see. You guys are talking about Chris Schultz is talking to the Tone King and saying that I'm sure Pete will give you a similar response. Not all reactive loads are created equal. I'm not sure what you guys are talking about, but yeah, that's true. Not all reactive loads are created equal. Definitely. The majority of them out there kind of do a sort of approximation of the impedance curve that an actual speaker and amplifier develop. There'll be a resonant peak and then a high rise that goes like that at the end. And the majority of them, if you kind of test them and look at them on a graph that you can test, or whatever you call it, scope, you can look at impedance curves on, they'll have kind of bumps on either end of, the high and the low thing. Whereas the actual impedance curve is a sort of steep spike in the resonance and then a high rise that goes like that and kind of just keeps going into infinity. So the majority of them don't really look like that. But in practice, even just the approximation of a curve is better than not having a reactive thing. It sounds pretty good, to me. The SIR is the most accurate if you test it, that I've seen, that looks like, in other words, like if we're just talking about greenback loaded 412 cabinet, that's what they modeled. It nails you can overlay the scoped out plot of their impedance curve against the actual cab one, and it basically mirrors it identically, which is why it really nails that sound. But anyway, Robert is in the top chat. Thank you, Robert. He says, thoroughly enjoyed your collaboration with Brett Papa. That's right. Brett put out a video that we did this week where we made a couple guitar tones and using the aux mainly, actually. And what did we do? We did Black Hole Sun guitar sound, and then just broadly some Van Halen stuff, and how to kind of, I feel like the presets in the aux are really great. A lot of them that it comes with, there's some AC/DC presets as well as Van Halen and all kinds of, classic guitar tones. And they're really good. A lot of times presets kind of suck, right? In gear, and the aux ones are really fun. So they're Van Halen, You Really Got Me, I think it's called, or something, preset. If you plug a Marshall amp in there and just crank it and then listen, you'll hear, that's basically what I used in the video. It sounds really, really great with the reverb and everything panned to one side. So anyway, but Brett Papa, watch the video on, his Papa Stash is his YouTube channel, and it's about an hour long. We had a lot of fun. So I'm glad you liked that. Thanks, Robert. And thanks for doing the top chat. Appreciate that. Scott's in the top chat as well. He says, I think the Sir Bella is a good amp for jazz and blues? Yes. Fantastic amp for jazz and blues. Absolutely. It's very, Fendery amp, but with all the problems fixed. You can crank it up and drive it and it never flubs out. Really, the drive is really nice on it. Actually, when you turn it up, it's known as a clean amp, but it does turn on the boost and then crank it up around 5 or 6, and it gets some lovely, really great drive tones, but the low end stays tight. It doesn't fart out. It's a wonderful sounding amp, really is. EP Stone's in the top chat. He says, hi, Pete. Thank you for sharing your experience and ideas week by week. Thanks. Thanks for giving such deep insights into the business and for the inspirations. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. You're in the UK. What's going on with or no, wait, you're Euros. You're Euros, but this applies too. What's going on with Brexit? What's going to happen? Oh my God. Is it going to be the no deal Brexit and everything's going to go to hell? I hope not. That would be awful. Let's not let that happen. We're watching from afar, and we don't really know what the deal is, but we hope it all works out. That's for sure. Kurt is up in the top chat, and he didn't ask a question. He just did the top chat, and he's a gentleman and a scholar. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. As well as nope, that's it for now for the top chat. I'm gonna keep going here through the regular chat window. Let's see. TTB fan says he played a new SG special with P90s last week. Totally awesome. A real rock machine. The Pelham Blue looks killer too. I agree. I've loved some of the guitars I've seen Gibson coming out with lately. I've seen some of the, like the SG you're talking about, 2 P90s and some really great colors. They do have a kind of a sparkle candy apple red too that looks awesome, that I would love to have actually. And I wish them all the luck, because it looks like they're doing good work to me. Definitely. What string gauge do I use, says David. So I've been kind of switching to a 9.5 gauge, gradually that's kind of what I'm navigating towards. 9.5 to 44. It's just more comfortable for me, and I don't have the strongest hands in the world, and I was using 10s for years and years and years, and in hot climates I was having problems, which is weird. I didn't know that was a thing, but hot and humid in Japan, playing on tour, playing 10s, I felt like it was a slog. Like I was just, what is the deal, And even my tech said it, though. He goes, I noticed it too. He goes, when I'm tuning up the guitars and stuff, it's like there's something in the heat and the humidity. And then I found out that Paul Gilbert actually switches to a lighter string gauge when he's in hot and humid climates. And so I can't be crazy, I guess. There's a thing to that. Anyway, so 9.5s, and they feel like 10s used to me for whatever reason. It's just like the way you want a 10 to feel. And it's not so thin that the tone goes out the window. I have no problems with the sound of them. I think they sound great. So Randy Wilcox says, hey, Pete, can't stay, have to run to work. He's in the top chat. Thanks, Randy. But wanted to send a quick note and buy you lunch. Thanks, man. You're too kind. Brittany is going to play some drums on my EP. Oh, yeah, that's right. I know you were talking to her about that. That's great. That's awesome, dude. Working on demos now. Terrific. Yeah, she'll do a good job. She's a rock and roll machine. Let's see here. Moving down. You guys are talking about the Waza tube amp expander. That's a reactive load, as well as effects and all kinds of the creme de la creme. The Bentley of reactive loads, I guess, is how they're positioning it. I haven't tried it yet, and but I am talking about maybe making a video for it. So I'd love to get one over here and try it with a whole bunch of these different amps and try some different impedance curves and things and see, some of the unique features about it are that it does multiple impedance curves. So if you want to do, like, say, an open back 112 in addition to a green back loaded 412, you can do that and have the right impedance curve. So I think that that'll be an interesting thing. And I'd love to try some of the effects and stuff that are in it, and also maybe MIDI it up to my pedal board, so because I think it's MIDI switchable. So it'd be interesting. Yeah. Bluefire says, what overdrives would I recommend to get a British Marshall type overdrive sound with a clean Fender amp? The one that I'm always gravitating towards these days is there's a slew I can recommend, but the Bogner Blue is really wonderful for a small format pedal that sounds the newish Bogner. It sounds great to me for like a Plexi kind of, Plexi meets JCM 800 kind of drive. I love that pedal. I think they did a great job on it. It sounds really good to me. It's very tweakable for different amps with the bright switches and all that stuff. And it's just got a great sound. Some others that I think are really good, if you want the high gain modded kind of thing, the BEOD is really good from Dave Friedman. The Riot is great for kind of a JCM 800 thing. The Riot Mini is great if you want a mini size pedal. The Origin Effects one that is kind of like two sides to it, and one side's kind of copper knobs and the other one's silver. There's a video of it on my channel. I can't remember exactly the name of the pedal, but it's probably the craziest one as far as full featured, really sophisticated, and able to sound really good, be it through a power amp or through the front end of an amp, just about any amp, because of all the controls they've given you to fine tune the bright and cuts and stuff like that on it to make it work with different sounds. So check out the Origin one if you really want to go crazy. It ain't cheap. It's up around $500, but it's basically a preamp. It's a little more than a typical pedal. I turned Peter Frampton onto it, and he tried it and loved it, and he's got it in his rig. People try them, and I got a fellow I met the other day is using it, and he loves it as well. It's just kind of the creme de la creme. So you can go all the way from like the Sir Riot, very simple, to that. It just depends what you want to do. I just think the Bogner Blue is nice because it's somewhere in between all that, where it's a reasonably priced pedal, and it's got some switches to tame the top end and stuff if you're going into a bright amp, or you can turn those off if you're going into a dark amp. It's reasonably tunable with its 3-band EQ and everything, and does the job and sounds great. Another one, Little Brute Drive from is it EBS or something? I can't. The Little Brute Drive 2 is the one that I did a video for. Great sounding pedal, mini pedal, small. It's small. Alrighty, looking through the chat here. See what we got. How often do I change strings? Oh, that's a question for kind of broadly for NYXL players. That's a Diodario string variant, one type of string they make, the NYXL, and that's Mark. He's asking people how often they change strings. He had a set on for a month and still sounds and feels great, he said. So I wonder if they're different in some way. Let's see here. You guys are talking amongst yourselves, which is great. Just looking for a question of some sort. Jennifer says, notice how I can't remember the name of the Diodario string product. But yeah, the Big Ben's nut sauce. It was marketing. They came up with a name that everybody's going to remember. You're right. I can't remember the name of the Diodario one, but it's great. I have it here, and it works really well. So they're both good. I actually sort of prefer the applicator, to tell you the truth. When you're applying the lube to your nut. Sorry, I had to say that. That's terrible. But yeah, no, it works with the nut slots on the guitar better, the applicator on the Diodario one. The one for the Big Ben stuff, I can show you guys this stuff. I have some right here. I have the Big Ben stuff. It's like in a syringe, like that, you know, and it's got this little cap on it. And you take that, and then you squeeze it out with the syringe, and you just put it in the slots. And I find there it is right there. Look, Big Ben's nut sauce. And this stuff will save your ass if you're a Gibson player. This is great stuff. I mean, it literally improves the tuning like 65% of your any problems that you got with G string, B string, D string stuff that goes on Gibson style guitars. This is your savior. Having a properly cut nut on your guitars is another huge thing. And I'm not convinced, I've had nuts cut by techs and stuff, and it doesn't get any better. And then I've had some done. Had a bad one on a Les Paul of mine, and then a Japanese tech guy in Japan at Cruise Music, CREWS. If anybody's in Tokyo, you need a guitar worked on. Cruise is in Shibuya, and they got great tech there that did the nut on my my black Les Paul Custom, and he just killed it. Bone nut, and it improved the tuning so dramatically. So between that and that stuff, thank me later. If you just order some of that Big Ben stuff, if you've got Gibsons and you're not happy with the tuning, it's killer. Moving down. Let's see. Does anyone here have or experience with the Friedman butter slacks? I do. I actually used one on the video I did with Doug Pinnick from King's X. And I played Dogman with him in my studio. It was super fun. And I actually used the butter slacks, as well as I did 2 guitar tracks. So when if you watch that video of us playing Dogman together, there was one track already cut because it's a double tracked part on the album. So Doug, the deal with the song at the beginning of the video is Doug sent me a live take of Jerry playing the drums in like a stereo mix of just Jerry's drums. And I imported that into Logic. And we were making a video for his bass pedal, his Tech 21 bass pedal. So that's what he was playing bass through, was that pedal into, my DAW. And then I cut one guitar part using the PT100 and panned that to one side. And then when I was playing with Doug in the studio, I was tracking the other part live with him panned to the other side. So one side's the butter slacks and the other side's the PT100. And I just decided to do that to give it a kind of a different sound, like a slightly contrasting heavy overdrive sound. And the butter slacks is great. It's a great high gain, modern heavy, got a lot of gain and sounds really cool. The clean channel isn't even really clean in it. I don't think. It's kind of like an alternate drive sound is the way Dave describes it, I think. 335 or Les Paul, says Mark. He simply cannot choose and saved up for one. Well, very different, and you should play them both and decide what you want to do. And there's the look and the feel and the whole 9 yards. I love 335s. I mean, to be honest, when you asked that question, I was like, my instant thing was, well, if I could only have one, it'd be the 335, which is weird for me to think because I love Les Pauls so much. But there's something about the tone of a 335 that is just so cool. They have so much personality and air in the sound is what it is. And it's almost like single coil pickups, like where a lot of personality comes through with single coil pickups that I think gets homogenized with humbuckers. If you got a 335 with low output pickups in it, low output PAF style pickups, it's a lot of personality comes through in the tone, and it just, I don't know, it's cool. But don't let me, you got to try them both. Is that an Explorer back there? I don't remember that in your collection. Yeah, I have had, so I don't know why, but I've been busting out. Where is it? Yeah, I'll show you guys the Explorer. I've been busting out all my old Gibsons lately. I used this on the Kraken video that I was talking about, the Victory preamp video. So this is a guitar that I've had since, I don't know, 2007, I think. And, it's just a run-of-the-mill, I was doing a truss rod adjustment, so the thing's not on there. I got to put it back on. It's a run-of-the-mill, 2007 Explorer. And it's a great guitar, actually. It feels really good. It's got a wide, kind of flat neck. And I'm using it in the Kraken video. I just busted it out because just for the hell of it this week. It's got kind of a MIDI sound to it. It's got pickups in it that are a little hot for me. So, and it was always kind of a dark and slightly MIDI, not real clear sounding guitar. So what I'm going to do is replace these with some maybe like kind of like hot-ish PAF style pickups. I don't know if it'll be a Thornbucker actually, because this particular guitar, I mean, maybe, but that particular guitar needs, I feel like, a bright pickup, which the Thornbucker and Thornbucker Plus is not necessarily a bright sounding pickup. It's a very balanced sounding pickup. So I think in that guitar, I want to put a hottish Alnico 5, something bright and kind of crunchy in the bridge. So I might do something different with that particular guitar. Gil is up in the, I hope I'm saying your name right, up in the top chat. He says, use my new Friedman at a big gig. This thing buzzed. I tried chords and different outlets. Thoughts? It depends, dude. If it's not doing it with your whole rig at home and it was doing it at a gig, it can be, sometimes like when you plug your pedal board into power, it's going to a different power source than where the amp is plugged in back at the back of the stage. It can be that. Like it can be that the grounding's different between the two. I don't know exactly. Somebody's going to offer a better suggestion than this in the chat here in a second. But I've found that where it's like I'll plug in my pedals at a gig or a club or something, and I'll plug my amp in at the back of the stage, and they're both going to different, and there's all this buzz and like a ground loop or something, and that's not normal for my rig. So I'm like, okay, something's going on where the pedal board's not grounded or something. So what I'll do then is I'll get a long extension cable and plug my pedal board in to the same power as the amp, and then everything works fine. That's one thing. It can also just be a noisy ass environment that you're in where your guitar is picking up all kinds of like, who knows, like what's the lighting like on the stage. So here's the key. If you turn your guitar volume down and the buzz is gone, then it's just shit coming in the pickups. So always do that. If you're in a club or a recording studio or whatever, and you turn your guitar up and there's like tons of buzz and you're like, whoa, I'm not used to this being like, what's going on? If you turn your volume all the way off on the guitar, well, it's coming from the guitar then into the pickups. It's electromagnetic bullshit coming in the pickups. And different environments have more or less of that. So some clubs just have a ton of it. I've got a fair amount of it in this room just because of the environment around. I think it's because of power lines out in the street and stuff. So I'm always battling it a little bit more than, say, when I had my old home studio. I had none there, which was great. So there's a couple things to be aware of. Try and make sure all your power is plugged into the same thing. Your amp and your pedal board are plugged into the same source of AC. And the other thing is always test where it's coming from. Another thing you can do is unplug if you got a bunch of buzz going and your guitar's not on, unplug your pedal board from the front of the amp. Unplug the cable, the input cable going to the amp. And if it stops, well, now you know that it's coming from the pedal board and it's sending it into the amp and it's buzzing. If you unplug the cable from the front of the amp and the buzz goes away, well, it's not the amp's fault, right? The amp's sitting there just idling, and then whatever you're sending into it is getting amplified. So it's hard to diagnose such things, not being there and stuff, but there's a bunch of stuff I would try. There's a few things right there. Mark's in the top chat. He says, how does the Butterslack sound versus a 5150 and diesel Herbert? I have a BE100 and want a modern tight metal sound with that great attack and feel. Well, so the Butterslacks is similar to a BE100 with the what the hell's the switch called? The SAT switch. SAT, right? Which is a Zener mod thing. That if you turn on that SAT switch, it gets a real heavy, it's a I can't remember where it happens, but it happens in the power section. And it uses Zeners to create like it kind of does a limiting thing and also adds drive, which is an old Jose trick. Yeah. Jose, Arco Electronics. That's right. So the Butterslacks does the Zener thing on one of the channels, I think, all the time. I can't remember, and it's probably got some other tweaks to the circuit and stuff that make it different. But I don't know. 5150 is its own animal, kind of. It's, was originally based off the sort of Soldano circuit, which is not, it's just different. Diesel Herbert. Diesels have a different kind of sound to me. I mean, kind of a drier thing. Keep in mind the Butter Slacks is still firmly rooted in that Marshall thing, whereas I don't think of the Herbert or the 5150 is also getting a little further away from that with its design. So I think it's still going to have Marshall teeth to it, and that sort of Marshall slightly, I don't know if you call it smoothness or what, but there's a certain sound to it, the mids or whatever. And then the 5150 and the Diesel Herbert, maybe when I just think of them off the top of my head, I think of a broader kind of distortion, a lot of preamp gain. It's a different way to get the gain, right? Like 5150 has like 5 tons of preamp tubes, right? And the Herbert probably similar, like a lot of gain in the front end, all getting cascaded, whereas a BE 100 is a little more like, it's not quite as much. I mean, there's maybe 4 preamp tubes or whatever and then the Zener mod does the gain in a different place and it achieves it in a different way. So it's just a different sound, a little more traditional Marshall with the Butter Slacks. Modded traditional Marshall. A Very Dead Horse is up in the top chat. He's just thinking about getting Granger amps to mod my Fender Hot Rod Deluxe for Marshall gain. Do the mod or save the money and buy something else? I would probably go another route. I would probably go another route. I don't know if a Fender Hot Rod Deluxe is ever going to do. Maybe they've got some mod they do that's awesome. I don't know. I mean, it's still an open back small amp, open back with a Fender. At that point, it's like, well, do I change the speaker to a Celestion something or other? I don't know what's in it. It's probably not a Celestion, right? Seems like a lot of work, if you want to get a Marshall, like, yeah, and you don't know what you're going to end up with. There's so many amps out there right now where you could go and just get it, and it's like you could sell your amp and then buy something probably for the same money that'll work. In a combo, you want a combo, you could get one of the Friedman runts or something like that. You would have a Marshall gain combo then that also has a clean channel that would be more of what you want, and you would know what you were getting. That would probably be what I would do, is get like a runt combo or something like that instead of a modded. You're going to have that much money into the Hot Rod Deluxe after buying the amp and then doing the mod, and you don't know what you're going to get. Which I don't want to take business away from this amp mod, or maybe they do a beautiful thing. Just make sure you do your research and listen to a bunch of them in videos, or if there's one you can possibly try, that would be the best. Anyway, lots of great questions there, guys, guys and girls. Who else we got here? I'm gonna move down in the chat here. I'm way back in the chat, as always happens. Yeah. What's my opinion on Parker flies? They're an interesting guitar. Have you ever played one, guys? Like the Parker Fly? They weigh 4 pounds or something, first of all, so that's neat. I probably couldn't get my head around the look and stuff, but I like that some people played them and did their own thing on them. And nowadays you got these Strandberg or whatever, all these guitars that are headless and the crazy, it's like maybe the Fly was ahead of its time, with that stuff. I think they did kind of well. I mean, for like a guitar that was so unique, it seemed like people bought them and played them, and they're still around. So it's tough when you come up with anything like a Steinberger or the headless guitars or the Parker Flies. They're doing a different thing. They certainly are an ergonomic, interesting guitar to hold. They sit on your body in an interesting way. And then the weight is really incredible. How light they are. Pretty neat. Todd Smith's in the top chat. He says, asked my Sunday gig to let me try my Badger 30 into a Bogner Cube with a Helix instead of all direct. Much better. Thanks for suggesting to ask. That's great. Yeah, you can always ask, if you're at a gig and they're like, we don't want any stage kits, like, would you mind if I just tried this and work with me on it? And I promise it won't be any louder than the acoustic drums are on stage, and whatever, so that's great. Terrific. That's awesome. A Badger 30 is a great amp with the power scaling. I mean, you can dial both those, the power and the drive control down to halfway up or whatever, and you've basically got a 10-watt amp then that will probably work just perfectly, with a little Bogner Cube. I'm glad you're happy. Yeah, direct is tough. Hashtag hate direct. You did. It is tough. It's not the guitar experience that we all grew up digging. It's like when it's isolated right here and in the in-ears, and it's like, ugh, it's not. It's never fun for me. As good as it possibly has ever been, like as good as it ever gets, is it's just okay. Like, yeah, that's tolerable. It's never an exciting experience to play with a isolated sound in ears. It's just not. I don't know. You want to hear the stage and be able to listen to the other musicians, and this gets into the whole in-ear thing too. But at least like when I did the Michel Polnareff tour in France a couple of years ago, I asked them if they would let me have a cab on stage, and they said yes, because initially the answer was no, it was going to be a quiet stage, and I was like, can I just try having a cab if it's not that loud? And I kept my amps down, and I had a rental cabinet, and I was using speaker sim. I was using 2 Notes torpedoes to host IRs to go to the PA. So and what was in my in-ears was those IRs, and I did use in-ears, but I had a cabinet there so that I could get some feedback, and it was right behind me, and I could feel it a little bit even with the in-ears in, and I could lean into it and get feedback. It wasn't that loud, and nobody was bothered by it. I used it. People make these arbitrary decisions many times, because they're used to maybe loud guitar players are worrying about it, and they're like, no, we're not going to have any. They're like, do you mind if I just try it and see if it bothers you? Because I was right in front of the drums, and I'm like, and it's Kurt Biscara, and I mean, he can play loud, and it's like, I guarantee you it's not going to be louder than what's coming off that kit. Like, just give me the chance to, because the PT100s have great master volumes. I would run them on like 2, it was not loud. And I just have it loud enough that the guitar would feed back when I'd lean into the cabinet. And everybody was like, oh, that's fine. We're playing arenas. It's like, it's not going to be a problem. Nobody's going to even notice. So anyway, Mark's up in the top chat again. He says, do you think the Butterslacks and BE100 Deluxe are too similar to own both? Yeah, maybe. Considering the Butterslacks are 5150 and Invective, they're pretty similar, man. A Butterslacks and a BE100. I'm not sure exactly you'd have to ask Dave what's different on a Butterslacks, but I think you could, if you turn on the SAT on your BE100 and dial it in, I bet you can almost match the sound of the Butterslacks. I don't know. I don't want to cost Dave an amp sale, that's for sure. That's not my intention. So, but that having those 2 amps might be a little redundant. The BE Deluxe is kind of like the creme de la creme of Friedman amps, in that I think it can kind of almost do anything, The Butterslacks does look cool though. So Chris says my Chase Bliss Brothers video was great. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Okay. Moving down, Yuri says, do I think it's possible to record a loud 100-watt amp through a single lower watt speaker without blowing it up? Yeah, as long as you keep the master low. And it's always a little bit of a crapshoot. But if you use an attenuator, first of all, you're going to be fine. Like, so a 100-watt amp attenuated, usually 1 click, like on a hot plate or whatever, a common attenuator that takes it down 3 dB, certainly an air brake or a the other one, I'm thinking the Rock Crusher is a good one to just attenuate a little bit. 1 click down, you're good with something. 100-watt amp with a say a vintage 30 in a 112 or something, you should be fine. They'll handle 60 watts, and you're cutting the power of the amp in half basically when you do that 1 click. I think it's even probably more on like a Rock Crusher, which attenuates I think 8 dB on the first click. So you should be okay then. If you don't have an attenuator, just keep the master, be aware of test it once. If you're going to isolate that cabinet, in a closet or something and mic it up, listen to it in the room and make sure you're substantially reducing the volume using the master, and that it's kind of like it can be loud and punchy, but not like, whoa, 100-watt amp loud. You got to keep it, and then you should be okay with a 112 you're always going to risk frying that speaker though. Just know that, if you're running a 100-watt amp in a 60-watt speaker, I've done it a lot. I used to use my first setup that I was recording with a lot for, when I started like Guitar Nerd and all that, did all that. I had a 112 Bogner Cube in a closet, and it had a 65-watt. Well, initially I had a Heritage G12H30 speaker. That was early days, like a long time ago. And then that was back when I did like that eruption video and stuff like that. It was a G12H30 Heritage speaker in the cabinet. And then eventually I got a Scumbag M75 65 watt version, which was like a greenback with 65 watts. And I used to run 100 watt amps into that, but I would just keep them low. You know, I generally use some attenuation. I had a Faustine attenuator, and then you're okay. Interesting. Albert asks, do I have tricks on how to apply for a festival by mail? You mean to play live at a festival? I have no idea, dude. Generally, you need a booking agent, you know, I think, to do that stuff for you. So, yeah, you need an agent of some sort to approach for gigs. Not all, you know, I'm sure there's indie festivals and smaller festivals and stuff like that where you could just, you know, but I don't know that much about it, to tell you the truth. I'm not sure. Can I run an HX Stomp on, can you run an HX Stomp on a Strymon power supply? I don't see what, if it's an Ojai or one of those Strymon ones, there should be a way to do that. It's a good question. I'm not sure what the power is on an HX Stomp. I'm sure they thought of that at Strymon though. I don't have a great answer to that. Send me an email and or actually just send an email to Friedman and ask him that. So racksystems@yahoo.com. He would know that. You know, you don't want to hurt your pedal or, you know, anything like that. So just maybe just ask him. He'll know. Let's see. Looking for another question. Tone King is asking, thoughts on attenuator question. Would really like to know my thoughts. Sorry, what is the question? I see you guys are talking amongst yourselves about attenuators, but I'm not sure what the question is. Just ask me one more time in the chat here, and I'll give you my best response. Artie just got a Boss MS3 as a switcher in multi-effects. Cool. Great little thing. Can I talk a little about my philosophy when building presets? I honestly, I just, you know, would use the bare minimum of things that are necessary to make the sound and then just try and tweak them in, you know? I don't really have a philosophy or anything. I guess if you watch that video that I did with Brett Papa, that would be a great sort of work in progress video of how I build a sound. So Brett Papa and I, you know, Papa Stash, there's a video on his channel, if you guys haven't seen it, where we make a couple guitar sounds, and we sort of start with the core clean tone or whatever, or distorted tone. Just here's the amp, this is what it sounds like, and then I build things on top of it. So maybe watch that. That would be a great video, actually, as a reference for what you're asking, and you can kind of see how I think. Will's asking if I miss the Great White North. I do. I love Canada. I miss it. I mean, it's like, you know, I miss all kinds of things about it, friends, family, and as well as just philosophy and all kinds of things of, you know, the way Canadians are. I miss it. I'll always love it. I wish I could live in both places, to be honest. Wish I could have a place in both, in, like, I don't know, Vancouver and LA or something. Chris says, oh, you guys are talking amongst yourselves. He's making a suggestion about Les Pauls and 335s, though, because somebody was asking which one should he get, and he's saying just keep playing different guitars till you find the one you can't live without. They're all different, but in general, 335 will have a warmer mid-range with a subtle presence peak. I find the thing I love about 335s is the air in the tone. You know, there's this air around the chords and every note that is really great. All right. Any gigs coming up, says James. Not really, no. Yeah, there's nothing on the books for right now, to tell you the truth. I've got a ton of work to do in here. That's the thing. I'm finishing up a record for somebody that I'm producing, and I'm making a ton of videos basically in here for different stuff. So that's on my horizon right now. And then talking clinics and maybe some other stuff later on in the year. But that's it for right now. Definitely some clinics. Like as we get closer towards June and the release of my amp, the PT amp is going to be shipping. Then trying to organize some clinics to go out and do my my recording clinic, but this time incorporating the amplifier. So that'll be coming. Okay. Let's see. Kraken is okay. So the Kraken preamp, somebody's listing the tubes here. It's Mike. He says Mullard CV4014 tubes and a single EC900 for the first gain stage. Never heard of those tubes. Yeah, me either. They built. It's kind of an interesting idea, though. You'll go on these sites that sell new old stock tubes, and many times they'll have like a ton of some tube you've never heard of, and they're like $3, but then of course the 12AX7s are $150. So they're like, I applaud the approach of like, well, can we make an amplifier circuit that sounds good and use up some of these old tubes that nobody wants around a different, build it around a different type of tube. I think that's a great idea. I mean, Kraken certainly sounds great. Amar's up in the top chat. He says, if you get free time later over a cup of tea, any notes or hints? The link is to my question rig. It's in the chat. You put link in super chat. Sorry, Amar. I don't know what the question was though. Anyway, just if you've got a question, Amar, just maybe even email it to me. It might be easier. Just Pete Thorn at Ymail. I'll try and get to it that way. Thank you for doing the top chat. I appreciate it. And if I see it in the main part of the chat here, I'll address it. That's right. Let's see. JD's asking, how can I get a pedal I build to you for you to do a YouTube demo with it? Well, once again, maybe just send me an email initially to petethorn@ymail.com. A lot of people email my Facebook mail, and I'm terrible about returning those because, as you guys know, there's 4 million places that people can, like, it's Facebook Instant Messenger, Facebook page email, regular Facebook email, my regular email, Instagram direct message, Twitter direct message. It's like, how do we all keep up these days with all the different ways, and then texts coming through all day? And it's just kind of getting crazy. I've actually taken, when I'm working in here during the day, the last few days, to turning my phone off. And I want to disable the alerts on my computer because it's just like, I'm like, how do I get anything done anymore? Like, it's like everybody, and there's a kind of people, this expectation, that you answer things right away and stuff. And it gets very difficult to get anything done. I don't know. Like I find myself like going to work and go, okay, I got 8 hours now. Let's get this done. And then like 6.5 hours has gone by and you've spent a lot of time getting distracted and doing other stuff. So it's great problem to have when a lot of people are contacting you, but it's also like really difficult to actually get down to the task at hand, which is like, you need to write a song so anyway, I'm complaining. I shouldn't be. But what I'm saying is, send me an email to petethorn@ymail.com. And then we can, correspond about the pedal. I always, if people are interested in having me do a pedal demo, I send out a little sort of, not form email, but sort of like this is how it works. This is what I do. And the number one thing is that I like to be able to try it first and make sure I like it. Cause as you guys know, I don't like to do videos for things that I don't like. So I'm never going to tell you that something's great if I don't actually really dig it. So I always try the thing first and make sure it's something that I feel like I can get good sounds out of. So that would be the first step. Send that email over to me. And somebody's up in the top chat. It's Chris. Hi, Chris. He says, he just bought a Dunlop Echoplex preamp and delay because of the echo into distortion video. And I've never been into delay at all. Damn you. Yeah, but you're going to have so much fun now because it's dynamic and fun. It's so much a big part of the, like, the Echoplex is all over Van Halen 1 and so many great records where it's just there bubbling in the background, doing this awesome thing, adding so much dimension to the sound. So you're going to dig it. And I love the Echoplex delay pedal, actually. It's great. Does a great job. It's so simple. George Trips is great. He knows how to build stuff and design stuff. Mark says he sold an Axe Effects and Kemper and bought a PT and BE amp and cab. Find myself jamming along to songs, writing, learning with plugins. Is it worth it to get an XFX3 again. So do you mean you bought the plugins, the PT, and I'm sorry, I don't know what you mean, but is it worth it to get an XFX3 again? I don't know. I mean, for you personally, the XFX3, which I have right here, is, you know, the thing that Fractal does that, and it's going to appeal to some people and probably not to others, is they make an extremely deep, really great sounding device that has a lot of parameters that you can modify and change. So if you're the type of person that loves to do that, in other words, when I think of the Edge or something, he uses an XFX sometimes, right, in his rigs. He's a great user for somebody like the XFX, or Alex Lifeson. If I think about the greatest guitar players, or Steve Vai, you know, you're really getting into using these devices deep, really getting into tweaking sounds and making some really, really cool sounds, you know. And then there's guitar players like, if I go to the extreme, well, Angus Young would be a great example, or he's not a great example of somebody that's going to enjoy an XFX. So you have to be the type of player. They make a great unit. I mean, there's no question that the XFX is a terrific, terrific piece of gear, whether you're just using it for effects, whether you're using it as your full-blown rig. It's great stuff. It's a deep unit that has a learning curve. Now, my experience with it has always been that I sit there and I work with it, and it is deep and there is a learning curve, but as I'm tweaking, the sounds get better and better and better and better. So it's not, many times I've had units that, and I'll give you an example. A Mesa Mark III amplifier is a great example of a deep amplifier with all these push-pull things and all these different options and stuff. And I would sit there and tweak that amp for 45 minutes. When I'd sit down to practice, I'd still find myself 45 minutes later turning knobs and trying to tweak the tone. And it wasn't getting better. It was like, and at one point I realized I got to sell this amp, because it's like I'm just find myself frustrated all the time trying to get this thing with all these options to do something that it just doesn't seem to want to do, that I want it to do. I think it's in there, but I can't find it. XFX is deeper than that by long stretch, because it's got all these different options for effects and stuff. But I don't have that experience with it where the sound's not getting any better. The more I tweak with the XFX, the deeper the sounds get and the better and better they sound. So if you're the type of person that likes tweaking stuff, you've got a good basic knowledge of all the effects and stuff, and you know about that stuff pretty deep, and you want to go down that road, somebody like the Edge, right? Or somebody like Steve Vai, you know, it's like they're great guitar players that are, like super popular, that have achieved, you know, high level of success. They're great examples of famous guitar players that I think probably really enjoy the Fractal thing, because they'd like to go down those roads. Angus Young is an example of a guitar player that he probably just wouldn't enjoy that, you know. So look at what type of guitar player you are, I would say, and what kind of thing that you want to do. And if you're the main thing is, if you're the type of person that really enjoys tweaking stuff, tweaking sounds, getting deep into your tones and exploring, you know, different sonic stuff and ways to, you know, then it's a good device for you. So it sounds like you already had one, but you got rid of it. So you don't want to get on that train either of like buying and selling things and back around and back, you know, just like there's something to be said for getting used to whatever rig you have for a while, and just the Tom Morello approach of, well, I'm going to set this thing right now. These are my settings, and now I'm going to make some music. You know, I do appreciate that. By the way, I'm thinking of kind of doing that. My intention is eventually here, I want to go out and play some gigs for my music. And I was thinking that what I would do is limit myself somewhat. I have a road case that will fit. Originally, I had it made for a Sir Badger, and it'll fit a Badger head. And then I had a slot put in it for a pedal board at the end. And I think with no problem at all, I can put this HX effects in there and maybe one expression pedal or something. And I thought, why don't I try and do a rig for my music that I can play gigs with, where it's just the PT15, because it's the same size as a Badger head, and the HX effects from line 6, and maybe one expression pedal that I can pop in the slide slot, or maybe two, you know, those little, you know, small expression pedals. If I had that, like, maybe I could just, you know, the HX effects will channel switch the amp, I think, with the two switches. I don't know if I can do expression pedals then, but see, that's okay. I'm thinking of limiting myself. I'm looking at it right now. It's down on the ground right here, because I've had it hooked up 4-cable method this week to the PT15. It works great like that. So I thought I wanted to see, you know, and then I could put everything in this little road case, and there's my rig. Like, there's my tour rig for my gigs. And if I could get all the sounds that I need out of just my amp with the HX effects, I'm thinking of trying that. So like limiting myself to that rig, and that is my rig. And if I can't get the sound, then I can't do that song or something. I don't know. Just get as deep into it as I can to try and get the best sounds I can. Does it worry me to leave all of my equipment here? Well, not unless creepy people come by. So keep the creeps away. What are you gonna do? You know, you can't go through life like always worried about it, right? Like bad shit happens, and hopefully it doesn't, but things happen. I don't know. You just do the best you can, right? And carry on. What worries me is, you know, no, I don't really think about stuff like that much. Like, you know, I don't know. I mean, a different perspective in life, I guess. Like when, you know, yeah, not really. I'll just leave it there. Let's see. Looking down. Mark is suggesting to Yuri, if you're going to turn up the amp at all, then you got to soak up enough power to leave the speaker safe. So this was the question about, can I run a lower wattage speaker than 100 watts with a 100 watt amplifier and safely? You're suggesting try putting it in parallel with a reactive load. That's a good idea. So you guys, like, you know, you can take a load box like the reactive load and plug it into one speaker output on your amplifier, and your amplifier will think it's seeing a cabinet on that output, but it's actually just kind of attenuating the volume. It's sucking, like, you know, some juice off the amp, and then you can plug a cabinet into the other output. That's a great idea. You have to set the impedance on the amp right. That's the only thing, because you got two loads in. It's kind of like using two cabinets, but one of them silent, if that makes sense. But that is a great way to do it. You could half the power of the amp that way, basically. All right. What else we got here? Moving down. Andy says, hey, Pete, love the Angus solo video. Far more useful than play this note tutorials. Yeah, so with the Angus video I put up the other day, I tried to do a broad topic kind of like analysis of what makes his solos cool. And I was saying the number one thing was digestible phrases. So the thing that Angus does is he plays a phrase, little rest, plays a phrase, little rest. And I love that about his playing. And when I think about Mike Landau, or I used Eddie Van Halen as an example also, you know, even Eddie is a great example of 2-bar phrases, you know, and then he always takes a break, or there's a little rest, then he does another crazy lick, there's a rest. And it's these phrases that you remember, and they're very sort of conversational. And I love that. So that was number one. The number 2 point I made in the video was, I don't remember. Digestible phrases. Number 2 was, start low on the neck and then work up. He does that a lot in his solos. So he never, you know, starts up high and then you got nowhere to go. You know, start down lower, playing simple phrases, work up, end up with a flourish up high. Always a great recipe for making a cool guitar solo that builds in intensity and takes you on a little ride. The number 3 thing was contrasting double stops with single notes. And he also does a lot of contrast using different scales. Major, he's basically a pentatonic kind of player, blues scale, Dorian mode a little bit, but like pentatonic based for the most part. But he'll mix up major pentatonic and minor pentatonic all the time. So creating contrast in your solos, using things like double stops and then some single notes, and then more double stops and then some single notes, and the major and minor scales. And the number 4 thing was attitude. You know, just his attitude is always so, you know, ballsy, and, you know, and kind of, there's a lot of humor in his playing and a lot of angst, and you know, just really cool. So those were the broad topics that I cover in the video. Tim Corder is in the top chat. Thanks, man. He says, any bad gear decision or gear that got away stories to share? You threw in the trash a silver-faced basement head a long time ago. That sucks. That's too bad. But I can beat you there, because I sold a 54 Les Paul Gold Top for way too cheap, and I'll always regret. Not that that's beating you. It's not a contest, but you can still buy that silver-faced basement for a reasonable amount of money, whereas the Gold Top Les Paul will never come back for anything less than, you know, even if it was a beater headstock repair, it would still be 20 grand. So that was my big one. I sold a great Les Paul Gold Top, and I wish that guitar was hanging back there right now, and I still had it. Sucks that that guitar's gone, but maybe I'll get another one someday. It's a 54 gold top. I don't even have a photo of it. Isn't that sad? I think I took some photos back when I was, shit. This was like pre-camera phone and stuff, and I just didn't have a camera that was good at the time, and I never even took photos of the guitar. It's just dumb. I wish I had some pictures of me playing it. I sound all emotional. I think I'm gonna cry. Let's see what else we got here. John says he's got a Les Paul with a Bigsby. He put a string butler on it, and it helped a lot, but not great. I think I need to have a new nut cut for the most accurate string flow. I think that would help. Yeah, if you're having a lot of problems, the number one easy thing I would try is this Big Ben stuff or the Diodario stuff to put in the nut to try and see if that alleviates your issues with tuning. Beyond that, if you're still having a bunch of problems, try having the nut done again and see if they can angle the slots a little bit, fan the slots just a little bit, especially on the G and the D. Those are the problem ones, man. And the D where you're tuning it up and it goes pop through the, that's when you know it's the nut, you know, when it jumps all of a sudden. If you're experiencing that, you know, number one thing is try the nut stuff, the you know, lubricant stuff, and see if that works. And the number two thing is just try getting a new nut cut. It's solvable, you know, it is. Robert's up in the top chat. Thank you, Robert. He says, hey, Pete, check out Jason's video, Line 6 HX Stomp, Mission Engineering EP1 and Morningstar MC6 Mark II expression pedal control via MIDI. Might give you some more ideas for your little rig. Thanks. That's a good idea. Yeah, I guess I could always use some sort of EP1 Morningstar. That's interesting. Okay. I'll check that out. I will check that out. Sounds like a good idea. If I could get away without using an expression pedal, I would. Like maybe if I could just do it with a, I don't know, like a, you know, a Dunlop Mini wah or something that I could just run off the board and just not have an expression pedal, I might do it. If I could play my music easily with that stuff, then I'll do it, you know. Somebody else is up in the top chat. It is Mimir's Yard 1. Thank you for doing the top chat. Appreciate that. There doesn't seem to be any modern guitarist with an easily identifiable tone. Your thoughts for the solution, or do you think that a signature tone is not as important as it used to be? I would disagree. I think generally speaking, I know it's Jack White when he plays. Who else would have an identifiable tone as a guitar player? Modern guitar player. I mean, I do know what you mean, you know. It's a lot of it is just technology and pedals and stuff like that that have, you know, made things as they are now, you know, as opposed to it used to be, you know, where you crank a vintage amp that had its own sound, and then, you know, with a guitar, you know, something like Brian May, right? When you consider the rig, it's just like, oh, it's got a very signature kind of sound to it. You know, generally speaking, I think that, you know, less pedals and more amp is probably a great way to get a signature sound. And if there was just more of that going on, where it was more about the guitarist's fingers and the you know, and if it's a pedal, it's something that does not drive, that simulates an amp or whatever, you know, a pedal that's a treble booster or something like Tony Iommi would use, or, you know, that's the way towards a signature sound, I think. But anyway, I know what you mean. It's, do I think it's that a signature tone is not as important as it used to be? I don't feel that way. I feel like it's a very important thing to try and develop at least a, I don't know, somewhat of a signature sound, something that people can relate to you. It's just part of why guitar is a little more homogenized these days, I think. But there are players that, like I say, like Jack White's a great example. You know it's him when you hear him on the radio. It's primitive and it's direct, but it's rock and roll, you know, like whether we like it or not, whether it's your bag or not, he's got a great thing. Any of the, you know, even the Black Keys, you know, like when I hear them and they do some signature kind of, you know, it's like older gear with more simpler approach is the thing, and less gear, you know, simple rigs. And I don't know, does that make sense? I don't know. The one thing that homogenized gain sound so much and guitar tones in general was preamp based distortion, you know, over kind of the whole amp being turned up and driving the speakers hard and stuff. That made a more unique sound. If you just drive the preamp into distortion, that had a more overall homogenizing effect on everybody's tone. You know, when we think about all the guitar players that have gone that way, you know, it's had that effect. So like a little less preamp gain and a little more overall, just, you know, but that it requires volume and turning things up, and people are scared of that now. Let's see here. Let's see. Or am I enjoying? Jennifer's asking a question. I heard a story about a major player who is living out of his studio in Vegas. I don't know who it is, but he's a known gigging player. You do what you must. Are you enjoying your new town? I am. Yeah, I'm enjoying where I live now. I mean, I'm still living in LA, but it's just a different part of LA. Let's see. Do I have any idea when is the next So You Want to Be a Pro Musician video coming out? I love that series. That's from Thaddeus. So I've been doing them every 2 weeks, so I'll do another one for this Wednesday. And I've got a list of topics here. Maybe you guys can let me know what you want me to do next, because generally I film them during the week. Let me see. There's one here kind of about financial awareness. That was one idea I had, like basically like about investing, putting money away, trying to avoid, you know, getting married and divorced, paying yourself off the top and saving, kind of just a general sort of like how to, like, you know, when you don't have a 401k and you work for yourself, essentially, like how to do that. Let's see. Dealing with adversity, how to get through the rough times and things that you can do to make money. Embracing change in the business and how to kind of go with the flow. Should you move to a music town or not, like LA, Nashville, New York? Is that a thing that you need to do? So those are all topics. Diversification, like how do you diversify and you know, become a bit of a jack of all trades, so that you can throw 100 things at the wall and see what sticks, you know. So these are some topic ideas I have. So I'll probably just pick one of those, you know, because it's definitely, you got to stay on your game if you want to do it. Am I in Canada right now? No, I'm not in Canada. And let's see, what else have we got here? The thing jumped to the end of the chat, and I think I'm sorry about that. I'm missing some questions here, but I think I'm just going to go to the end because I'm missing a bunch of the you know what I'm saying. So I'm going to start at the end here. Let's see here. BV Ninja says, I think there's a ton of modern players with their own tone. Yeah, let's list a few, you know, for sure. Give me some ideas for some listening stuff. The Mars Volta guitar player, says Aaron Songs. Derek Trucks and Bonamassa. I think Bonamassa is definitely, he sounds like him no matter what he plays through, but that's because it's in his hands. But he's doing a unique thing. Derek Trucks definitely has his own sound for sure. I mean, Joe's using those Tweed basement amps now and kind of very minimal. Once again, he's turning up vintage amps, vintage style amps. I mean, they're probably mostly using old ones live. And, you know, just good hard playing with minimal pedals, and he's got his sound. Signature sound is likely to come from the finger, says Preston Smith, which is why some people just sound like themselves regardless of the rig. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Tom Morello for sure. Yeah, Tom did a very you know, he also, you know, once again, it's sort of in his hands. It's the parts he plays and stuff. But I liked his approach to JCM 800, basically simple sort of vintage style amp with a few basic effects, and then really learning how to use those tools, right? That's the approach. He's the ultimate version of that sound, I mean, the ultimate version of somebody that really dove deep into their effects and learning how to use that stuff. And getting, you know, like basically ringing every single sound you can get out of a simple, you know, 5-pedal pedal board and a simple amp and guitar. I found it fascinating. I watched his rig rundown recently. I found it fascinating. He really only uses the neck pickup. I was like, wow. I mean, this is coming from someone that had to learn a lot of his parts and basically like, you know, mimic him for 3 years. You know, I learned like so many audio slave songs. So I never clued into the fact that he basically used the neck pickup all the time. So he must dial his amp for that and stuff, you know, and uses the bridge pickup on guitars that have one as kind of almost a kill switch. But he's playing on the neck pickup all the time. It was pretty interesting. Yeah. So Mateus Asado, says Chris, it's in his hands though, you know, because Mateus is somebody that basically uses a relatively, it's totally in his hands. It's his style of phrasing and everything, you know. He uses a fairly straight up clean sound a lot of the time. I mean, he does play distorted, you know, sometimes, but when I think of Mateus and his tones, it's his fingers, you know. Let's see here. Moving down. Let's see. Deliverance says he's got a question, but it's in Spanish and I can't read it. Hola, Pete. Desde Acapulco, Mexico, ¿qué opinas de la Court CR250? Sorry, I probably just said that all wrong. I don't know. Is that a Court guitar? I'm not sure, my friend. I wish I could. I should be able to speak Spanish after so many years in LA, but I can't. I apologize. I should really learn. We're so silly in America. It's like, honestly, it's like, you know, every time I go to Europe and everybody speaks 3 or 4 languages, and it's like, I really wish I could speak more than I work on Japanese and I've worked on French a little bit, but I can't, you know. I wish in my formative years I had learned. Let's see. Olid says, is that your name? I think it is. I want to get rid of my 15 years old M Audio Firewire audio interface. Yes, it's time. Firewire has gone the way of the dinosaur. Any advice for a small, inexpensive USB one? What is Thunderbolt? I would go with the Arrow from UA. I don't know that it's USB though. Is it Thunderbolt or USB? It might be USB, the Arrow. I'm not sure. Beyond that, anything that Apogee makes is really nice, the little Apogee interfaces. So look at Apogee and UA interfaces. Or if you want to go cheaper than that, really on a budget, I like the PreSonus stuff quite a bit. Jeff Beck definitely has his own sound. Definitely in his fingers. That's from Brett. Greg Koch, he's got a sound for sure, definitely in his fingers, but he can do so many different sounds. That's the thing with him. He's just so ridiculous on guitar. Let's see. Josh from Queens, definitely. He's got a thing, but once again, that's vintage amps and stuff, just kind of turned up. I watched that interesting Eric Valentine video on Queens of the Stone Age guitar sounds where he won't tell exactly what they do because they're famously very kind of, you know, secretive about that, but he does explain some of the recording techniques, which go a long way towards explaining a lot of the things that they do. So watch that Eric Valentine video on getting Queens of the Stone Age guitar sounds if you want to see something interesting. Essentially, they boost mid-range like crazy, like at the console, you know, at the rig using EQ pedals and stuff like that, but then also at the console boosting mids, tons of mids, to give a certain, you know, so we say mid-rangey quality to the guitar sounds. But I did find it really interesting. Yeah, a good video. Okay, moving down. I went back up through the chat there to find some of those. But Dimebag and Morello haven't been modern for at least 10 years now. That's probably pretty accurate. That's from Hector. Dimebag, he used Randall solid-state amps to get his sound, and it was a unique way to get a metal sound for sure at the time. But yeah, you're right. It's been a minute. And one could argue that I used the Jack White example, but Jack White became popular in the early 2000s, so I don't know if that's really relevant either at this point. He's totally relevant. I don't mean he's not relevant. He puts out cool new music all the time and stuff, but he is, you know, we are going back almost 20 years now, right? So new guitar player, you know, I don't know. It's tough. Let's see. Bill Frisell definitely has a signature tone. I wouldn't call Bill Frisell a super modern, you know, or young guitar player though. That's the only thing, right? Let's see. Can you tell what fuzz you played about a month ago? It sounded real good. I don't know. Did I use a fuzz pedal? Maybe it was the Fuzzstration video. Fuzzstration from Wampler. I did a video for that fuzz pedal about a month ago. Yep, I did. Chris is suggesting Focusrite interfaces to OLED for a good inexpensive interface. Focusrite is the first that comes to mind. I like the Focusrite ones. Britt has a Focusrite 8-channel single rack one, and it works quite well, I think. You know, pretty good. I like the PreSonus stuff quite a bit as well. Old Guy's Guitar Vlog is in the top chat. Thanks, man. He says, happy Sunday, Pete. Are we going to see a PT15 plugin for UA interfaces eventually? Or would the PT100 plugin cover mostly that as well? You know, basically. I mean, the gain sounds and stuff, I would say. The clean channel is a little different, but I don't know if it's different enough to warrant its own plugin, to be honest. Because we basically went with the gain sound and then 6v6s of the PT100. You know, so it's a similar channel too and all that stuff. So the PT100 plugin is fantastic, though, I have to say. It's absolutely, it's not just, I'm not just tooting my own plugin, although I am, but it's absolutely one of the best guitar amp plugins I've ever tried, for sure. They knocked it out of, that's not me doing it. The Brainworks absolutely killed it. They did a great job. Do the Friedman pedals sound good with a Marshall head, or is that too much of a good thing? That's an interesting question. Marshall pedals into Marshall amps. I think as long as you keep the gain really low. I don't really know what the point would be, though, of a Friedman pedal into a Friedman amp if we're talking about a BE pedal here. Now, if you're talking about the Golden Pearl or something, that totally makes sense because it's more of a boosted overdrive going into a Friedman amp. That sounds great. Would I use a BEOD with a Friedman head? No, I'd just use the gain on the Friedman head, to be honest. Metropolis Metroplex amp. That could sound good with a BEOD if you had to set the amp low and couldn't turn it up or something like that, you know, I would say. But try it. Don't discredit the Golden Pearl. Try that pedal. It's a really cool sounding one. Dave used to make a pedal called the Naked Overdrive that was, I think that was their, what was the pedal company called? Oh God, I'm forgetting. I feel bad now. The same company that did the Abonai 2 pedal. But anyway, they made the Naked Overdrive, and that I think was kind of the starting point for the Golden Pearl. It's a similar pedal. Okay. Moving down. How can you be a pro musician when you're pathologically shy, says On the Road? That's a great question. That sounds like pathologically shy sounds like something you need to work on with a therapist. I'm not kidding. I'm not being facetious. I'm a big fan of therapy, by the way. Because none of us are given an instruction manual for life, and our parents are they've only got the skills that they've got, and hopefully they all try and do the best job they can, but they often fall short, That's the reality of life. So a good therapist is a great thing if you want to move forward in there. It's such a funny thing, it's like it's like an ego thing. Oh, there's nothing wrong with me. I can figure it out on my own. And it's like many times in your life, it's like you run into problems. You seem to make the same mistakes over and over and over and over again, right? And you can't get past a certain thing, whether it's in your relationships or in your career. And it's like, maybe I should try something else. How about talk to a professional like you would if you were, had a health issue, or if you had to go back to school to learn a new trade or whatever, And then when you find a good one, which isn't always, it's hard to find a good one. If you can find a good one, it's like, oh my God, like the amount of progress you make in like a year or, 6 months or whatever. And it's just like you move forward. So that would be what I would honestly recommend. That's the best advice I can give, is if you've got something that you feel like is a roadblock you can't get over and it's affecting your career, you want to be a pro musician, go seek, to find out if there's a way that you can, that you can move beyond that. That's the best advice I can give, and I wish you success with that for sure. It's hard these days too. Like all the devices and the phones and the computer and doing what we're doing right now and stuff is a great way to reach people, and yet it's isolating. Here I am in a room, I'm talking to 430 people, but I'm not alone, but I am, And I think the more time, I started noticing it a long time ago, like when I would spend a lot of time working on my computer on music or whatever, and I'd be home like isolated a lot. Then when I went out, like I'd have to go out eventually, and many times I would just go down to the local pub or whatever. Go, I don't talk to anybody today. I got to get out of the house and actually like say something to another human being. And go down the road and you know, have some food or have a drink or whatever, just so I could have a little social interaction with the bartender or whatever and speak to somebody. And because I don't have kids, you know, and stuff. So and so you go talk to somebody and you're a little socially awkward. Like at first, I find that with the amount of time that I spend on a screen or in front of a computer or whatever, and alone, directly proportional to how socially awkward I maybe get or shy or whatever it is, you know, once I do get out there in public. So it's important to, you know, to just be aware of that, I think, in this age we live in. But anyways, moving down. If I take my show on the road, please, Toronto, TO, I would love to do that. That's Brett. I would love to, man. Yeah, I've talked a little bit with a guitar player friend of mine about doing like a tour, you know, for my own record and getting out there. And he's got a similar sounding record, kind of similar music, and it would seem to kind of make sense for us to maybe do some stuff together. So we'll see what happens. We'll see where it goes. And I would love to do it all over the place. Let's see. Let's see. Looking for a question here. You guys are talking amongst yourself. Jerry Cantrell is one of the most original when it comes to somewhat straight, heavy rock. Yeah, Jerry's got a sound, kind of in his hands too, I think, you know, for sure. But you know, he also has a unique way of recording guitars, like heavy guitars, that is really cool, I find. Going back to like maybe Dirt, where they would, you know, triple track guitars, one up the middle, two in the sides, and kind of have this wall coming at you that wasn't just doubled. There'd be one in the middle too. Pretty neat. You could do a little research into that if you're into such things. And he was using a lot of Bogner and stuff. Had a great sound. Bram is in the top chat, and he says, about Tom Morello, I need to recreate his sound on Killing in the Name for a gig. Maybe you know a shortcut. When I think about that song, it's got a whammy, right? In the solo, so you need the whammy pedal. Other than that, JCM 800 kind of martially, that's all you need to do, right? Neck pickup, because now we know he uses the neck pickup all the time after that rig rundown. You need a whammy pedal, you need a JCM 800 type of drive, and you need basically a guitar with a neck humbucker. You are there, my friend. That's all that's on that tune now that I think about it. And let's see, who else we got in here? We got somebody in Iran, all the way from Iran. That's awesome. Guitar player over there. What's up, dude? Do I follow you on Instagram? I think I might. Are you the guy that's super into David Gilmour? I think that maybe lives in Iran. Anyway, I love that there's folks here from all over the world hanging out, all joined under our common love of the guitar. That's great. Anyway, you might be the fellow. I think that's the. But then again, I'm looking at your small little thumbnail here, and I think it might be you. And who else we got here? Let's see. We got Jay Money, and he says, do I ever play a Jazz Master or something with P90s? So my one P90 guitar, I'll show you. I only have one, but it's this one, and it's a great one. You guys have seen this guitar in some of my videos. This is a Mac Mall. And this guitar is like a custom made out of supposedly all like super duper old wood, and it's super duper ringy, and it's also a little out of tune right now, but it's got, P90s obviously, and that sort of vintage Telly style bridge, three saddle bridge, and this thing sounds amazing. It's got an incredible clean sound. I play this guitar on the song Remember from my last album, from Pete Thorn 2. So you can hear this guitar. It's the clean guitar in the intro of that song. And I had it tuned down to drop C sharp, I think, to play that part. It's kind of it took me a while to cut that part. It's kind of complicated to play it clean and stuff. But anyway, it's this guitar, and it's a lovely sounding instrument for clean stuff, as well as for for drive. It sounds great. It's got a great neck too. Actually, just picking this up, I want to play this guitar today. It's such a great guitar. I got this a couple of years ago, and it's just a wonderful guitar. I found it at GitCon. Who else we got here? Questions. Let's see. Rob Chapman has a good video on being shy, says Hector. Okay, that's cool. Good advice there. It might help to play a role or pretend your audience is your choice of demographic. Okay, so I can offer a little bit of help there, I guess. One of the things about being shy and about stage fright and stuff is it's a couple things. Like, remember always that the audience is there to see you. You've got them already. They've got your back. They're not your enemy. Like, you're not walking out there and they're not like, let me see this guy screw up. Like, they didn't pay money for a ticket or whatever for that, It's like, you've got them already, So they're rooting for you, in other words. So that's important to remember. I guess it's maybe feeling the pressure that you're supposed to be great or something. And maybe we get in our own heads sometimes, like too much of, well, maybe I'm going to suck up here and then they're going to, whatever. Hey, man, it happens to me. Believe me. I mean, I get in that headspace sometimes, but I have a couple key things that I think about. I already brought up Jack White in this week's live stream. He's actually a little bit like my spirit animal when I need to turn off that part, because there's a thing I like about his attitude and I really do think he's one of the guitar players with a signature sound in the last, certainly in the last 20 years or so. And I think that his attitude is something that we can all take a lot away from. I don't want to go into the stories that I always tell about him and some of the key things in this, but his attitude is all I'll say. Like, he just, if you watch that movie, It Might Get Loud. That was where I really became a fan, when I saw that movie. And I was like, wow, this guy's he's just so out there, and mistakes or whatever, or even if the guitar screws up or what, he does not care, and it doesn't matter, and he still just kills. And that's what, so I'll think, if I'm in a situation where I'm feeling like nervous or something's getting the better of me, like that, or when I'm thinking like bad thoughts or going to the dark place or whatever, I think about him and his attitude, and I just go, what would he do in this moment? And that busts me out of it instantly. So think about a guitar player that has, and it usually helps if it's not a chops guitar player or somebody that's really technically, like, I don't want to think about Eddie Van Halen in that moment, because it's like, well, that's just going to make me feel intimidated or something or whatever, you want to think about somebody that's just, like Angus or something. He's similar, actually, to Jack White in many ways. It's blues based rock and roll guitar. There's flub notes. There's stuff that's not perfect. And that's what makes it better. I don't know. It's all about the performance and the attitude. Because I'm a rock and roll guitar player at heart. I'm not a classical guitar player. I'm not like a really, technically, jazz guitar player, super intricate guitar player or something. I mean, I can play things that are intricate, but at the core, I come from the Who and the Beatles. And, the rock guitar players of the day back, like the first stuff. Townsend was my first guitar influence. So he's like a primitive Jack White almost, like back from this, he's like the proto Jack White. I don't know. Does that make sense? Like, not really known as a soloist. It's about his attitude in the songs, and so while I connect with, because I grew up loving Steve Vai and stuff like that too, there's still this core of where I come from is that thing. So getting back to that and remembering that that's the stuff anyway that really seems to connect with people. I don't know, that can help bust you out of your, shy or anything. So Ian says, the older you get, the more you realize you don't know anything. It's true. The older I get, the more I realize that there's so much to learn, but that's also a wonderful thing, I guess, right? So it makes you humble as you get older, and it almost keeps you young to realize, like, oh, there's still so much to learn, If you'd learned it all, that would be boring, I think. If you're like, oh, I've got it all figured out. Anyways, Seriatone amps. Have I ever tried any? I have not. That's from Bill. I've never played one. Although, Ichiro, the other guitar player that I do my Japanese gig with, he plays a Seriatone amp sometimes live with Yoshi, and it's a kind of a dumbly one. I've never tried it, but I have been on stage with one quite a bit. Let's see. Yeah, you could always go the bucket head route to shyness. You can put a bucket on your head, and it works if you're a walking guitar god. That's true. He made it work. Matt says he wanted to be a pro musician, but he also wanted to make money, so he had to get a career. Yeah, it can be tough to figure out how to do both. That's for sure. Robert Fripp has issues with stage fright. That's interesting. That's from Wolf Z. I think probably a lot of people do. You know, I think a lot of people do. You know, and Eddie Van Halen's talked about it. He's got issues with stage fright. You know, that's part of the reason why he, you know, sort of self-medicating with alcohol and stuff like that for a lot of years. And then once you get sober, it's scary as shit. You know, really scary. You know, but I think that's at getting past that moment where then you get out on stage, and if you're well rehearsed enough and everything's cool, and you just get through tunes and you realize everything's okay. You know, Eddie talked about how he realized that if his son could do it, that helped him in sobriety. I think, like when he realized that Wolfgang can do it. And he's a young kid and he's out there and he's doing it, so I got to be able to do it. You know, and that helped him. You know, this is one of the things that I think a lot of people, if we get into the Van Halen discussion, when people talk about Mike Anthony and he should be in Van Halen and stuff, one of the things to realize is maybe, I don't know if Eddie without Wolf would have be able to come back at all, right? Because I think he got so much strength from his son being there and seeing him, and he was really almost his, you know, through maybe a dark phase or whatever, is like that guiding light or whatever that helped him get to, you know, so that he could be, you know, in a healthier place. So anyways, Eric Johnson is painfully shy, says Old Guy's Guitar Vlog. He used to hate being in front of crowds. I could see that. He seems like just the sweetest dude, like the nicest, most mellow, unassuming, you know, just kind of does his thing. He seems like such a nice person. I could see that he would probably be pretty shy. Then there's the folks like, you know, I was talking this week with somebody about Neil Peart from Rush. His books are so fascinating. If nobody's read his books, you know, I read The Masked Rider, which is about cycling through Africa. There's not a lot about music in that book at all. And then there's the one called The Ghost Rider, which is the next one, which is the heaviest read because both his wife and daughter passed away in the same year. From, you know, different things. His wife from cancer and his daughter was in a car accident when she was 19 years old. And he just gets on a motorcycle and starts riding because he doesn't know what the hell to do with himself because his whole life just is kind of completely turned upside down. What a fascinating book. Like, unbelievable read. Just go and if you want to get a good book, just get Ghost Rider by Neil. Not a lot about music, really a lot about maybe just not playing music anymore. He didn't know what he was going to end up doing at that point. And it's really just a travel log. And also you're going with him, you know, for a guy that, and why I equate that with the shy thing is he really dislikes the public interaction with fans and stuff like that. He doesn't understand why, if people like his drumming, why that would equate to somebody wanting to take a photo with him or approach him and shake his hand or something like that. He doesn't get that. He's never been comfortable with that. And yet, so, you know, if you ever were to meet him in public, it might be an uncomfortable experience if I don't think he doesn't like that, you know. And yet when you read his books, you get so inside his, you know, it's like you're becoming friends with somebody or something like that. You get deeper, you know, by reading this book into this guy's psyche than you probably ever do with a lot of people that you're really close to, I think, because it's such a vulnerable time in this guy's life, and where he's going through this horrible thing, and he writes this book about it. It's one of the best books I've ever read. But anyway, I just find that stuff fascinating because he's a guy that's hard on himself, you know, when it comes to performance and you know, needing to get, you know, I know that he from Matt Scannell, who's done sessions with him and stuff, because he played on some Vertical Rise and stuff, and he would come in the studio and have when he worked on Matt's stuff, he would have everything mapped out, like every single note and fill and it was basically a one-take thing. He'd sit down and play the parts that he came up with for your song, you know, if you gave him a demo. And then it was kind of like a difficult thing if, like, I think Matt said that maybe he and it was somebody else. It wasn't Matt I was talking to you about this. It was the person that was playing bass on the session said, if you wanted to change a section, like, maybe we should try something else in the solo or whatever, or go here, or go there. That was like kind of like what do you mean? Like, I already wrote the part, and that's the way Neil plays. This is kind of like, that makes him feel comfortable in having how his drum riser looks. I mean, think about guitar players like this too. Is probably like, I just find it fascinating, but it's the same thing. It's like somebody in their gear and he's got everything bolted down and everything is just so, and it is just so, imagine what his house looks like, it's probably just everything in its place. And it's like, that's what makes him feel comfortable and safe or whatever as a performer. And when it's not that, I think it was in Traveling Music, which was his next book, where he was talking about doing a one-off with Rush. And it was for maybe the SARS benefit or something like that outside Toronto. It was like Bryan Adams and all kinds of people playing. And Rush was going to do a short, like 45-minute set at a kind of a one-off benefit thing. And that was a really, they don't do things like that, do one-offs. And he agreed to do it. And getting ready for it, they had, even just for this 45-minute set, they had like, a 2-week rehearsal period or something. And that to him was like not enough. It was like, he was just feeling the pressure of having to go out there and perform. And it's like, wow, like even after all these years, it was probably a lot to do with why now he's not playing. It's he has to do it at a certain level, and it has to be just so. And physically, if he's feeling like he can't, do it anymore, to whatever level that is his standard, he doesn't want to do it. And it's a lot of pressure, but I mean, everybody's different, everybody's different. I guess I could see some of that in Eric Johnson too, that he wants it to be, every single little thing, and things that he notices and probably would ruin his night, a certain tonal issue or something like that with his rig or whatever. It'd just go over our heads and we wouldn't even know. But, people are fascinating, we're all different. L. Scott Music, that's Lauren. He says, a good therapist doesn't have to know you or your life. A good therapist keeps you from fooling yourself, keeps you real, reminds you what actually matters. I think, I don't know about not knowing you or your life. I would say they got to get to know you and the way you tick a little bit. But I totally agree with the second half of that, Lauren. Like, a good therapist keeps you from fooling yourself. A good one will not let you get away with anything. That's true. They'll, as soon as you say something that, wait a minute, they'll like, pin you on stuff and make you think about things in a different way that maybe you do over and over again. Keeps you real, reminds you what actually matters. I think that's 100% true. Sometimes shows you what actually matters when maybe you've been thinking that, like, going down the wrong, I don't know, they can say things sometimes that's so profound that you're like completely turns your perspective on an axis. Makes you think about things differently. All right. Let's see here. Old Guy's Guitar Vlog says, what's totally stupid is I used to lecture in front of hundreds of people. Well, that's a special ability, and then you're saying, but put a guitar in my hand in front of a crowd or camera and I fall apart. Yeah, I mean, I get that. I think it can be mitigated, or you can work around it, but I get it. It's tough, I mean, public speakings, that many guitar players can't do that. There's a lot of guitar players that you put them up there and they're just completely uncomfortable speaking, but put the guitar in their hands and that's how they, communicate. So the bigger the audience, the easier it is. I opened for Rush. Speaking of Rush, that's Paul Ewing. And it was dead easy. That's interesting. Yeah, it is an interesting thing when you get on a big stage and you walk out and there's so many people that it's like there's this disconnect. It can be tough. It's one of the hardest things to do. It can be sitting playing a song for somebody you're close to. Your mom's like, play me a song, and you're like, oh my God, like what do I even do? I don't know, like something like that. In a room with a significant other or something, you're trying to figure out what to do, right? Like, and yet when you're on stage in front of, be it 100 people, 1,000 people, 10,000 people, 100,000 people can be like the kind of the easiest thing, because it's like it just looks like the sea of like, and it can become very, it's a weird thing. But I've totally found that as well. Some of the easiest things that I've done are the big crowds, and then sometimes smaller club gigs and stuff where people are more right in your face. It can be difficult. Also, you see the damn cameras. That's part of the problem these days, is everybody shoving that phone up in your face. Like. That sucks, know that when you go to You know, if anybody's listening and their tendency is to get out and film right up against somebody in a club, it's like all the person can think about is like, oh, this is good. This is going on Instagram right now. It's like they're probably live streaming me onto, you know, it's like, and then you're out of your shit. You're thinking about the wrong things. And I don't know. Troy says, did EVH meet SRV? I would have no idea. I don't know. That's a good question. Probably not. Hey, Pete, what do you think of the PRS hollow body guitars? I don't know, honestly. That's from December 19971. I've never, I don't think I've ever played a PRS hollow body guitar. I did play a nice PRS guitar recently at GitCon. They feel, PRS makes nice guitars. I mean, they feel good. It's a thing, you know? And if you like their thing, they make guitars with great necks and really playable. It's just a thing. Jerry DeLuca is in the top chat, and he's from Canada. What's up, dude? He said 3 critical elements to a guitar player sound. 1, sound delivery system. 2, guitar and its hardware. 3, hands. I would almost put it in the reverse order. Hands is the biggest one. You know, but what would I say was hands down the most important element to early Eddie Van Halen sound? Hands down, it's his hands. Absolutely the hands, you know. If you can't play the parts, it doesn't sound like him. Ever. And it's his attack and the way he makes the Marshall go, you know, it's his attack and his swing and his feel. That's the main thing to the Eddie Van Halen guitar sound, you know. I was listening yesterday to Van Halen 2 for the first time in a while, and it struck me how different it sounds actually than a lot of other albums, even than Fair Warning or Women and Children First. Fair Warning, Women and Children First, and then you've got Diver Down, which is kind of its own thing, segueing into the tone that's 1984. All actually very different sounds. I mean, it's all the Marshall, but there's some, you know, obviously with the harmonizing and stuff that went on in the later stage, but also Van Halen 2 to Van Halen 1, so different sounding. Just the tone itself is just that kind of raw, straight up plexi thing on Van Halen 2, and Van Halen 1 definitely sounds different to me. I've got my theories about, you know, what it is. I think it's the sort of Mighty Mite super distortion style pickup combined with maybe a JBL speaker mic with the Celestion speaker, I think is the difference in the two albums. And who knows what went on the production end, right? With compression and EQ and all that business. But anyway, nonetheless, that right there, I mean, it still sounds like Eddie and the songs are still Van Halen, you know, but the tone's quite different, yet the hands are there, and that's the main element. So it's the hands. That's the main thing. Did I ever test the Wampler Plexi Deluxe OD? I don't think so. That's from Phil. I don't think so, but Wampler, generally speaking, he really gets Marshall style pedals too. His Pinnacle Deluxe, and I'm burping, sorry. Pinnacle Deluxe, great sounding pedal. The Wampler Plexi Deluxe Overdrive. I don't think I did a video for it, but I might have back in the day, you know, a few years ago or something. Back in the day. What does that even mean? Yeah, Brian really gets stuff. We've been working on something a little bit, actually. I won't say what, but I've worked a little bit with Brian on something. And he makes great sounding drives. He does. He knows overdrives at this point. He's no spring chicken. He's been around. Who else we got here in the chat? Let's see. The bigger audience, the easier it is. That was Paul. I saw that already. Sorry. Let's see. Okay, so I suppose this is the point. On the Road says, the question is not when you're shy with an audience. Well, it could mean that. But did you ask the question? Because then you would know. But I suppose you mean if you're shy with people. So how do you deal with that? That's a different. You're right. We did kind of go off on the audience thing and the crowd. So if the question is how do you be a pro musician when you're painfully shy around other people, that can be hard because like you have to bridge that gap when you're like doing an audition or something. You have to be nice to people and be comfortable meeting, you know, folks and getting to they have to get a good impression that you're going to be a fun or at least, you know, relatable person to hang out with in a work environment in order to hire you in the first place. So it can be tough. But once again, my answer is the same. You know, you got to do some therapy. I think is all it is. So James is asking about Eddie Van Halen, how I met Eddie Van Halen. I sort of don't go too much into that stuff. I like to keep that really on the down low. I just respect him and his privacy and stuff like that. Essentially, it was a work-related thing. And someday I'll tell this story, but now is not the time. And it'll blow your mind when I tell you, because it still blows my mind to even just think about it. But it was actually a work-related thing with Eddie that didn't end up really panning out into that. But what did develop was a friendship. So that's essentially what happened. But it was through mutual friends and stuff like that, as is most of the case. You know, that I met that fellow about 10 years ago now, I guess. And it's an interesting story where I'll just say this much about it, where it was like the feelers were put out there and something was put out, and then it was like, okay, Eddie wants you to call him. And it was like, oh, wow, that's crazy. And so I called him because I had his number at that point, and I gave him a ring and left a message on a machine. And a couple days went by and I didn't hear back or anything like that, but I wasn't going to pester him or anything. And then so one morning I was taking a shower or something. I got out of the shower and I looked at my cell phone. Of course, I'd put his number in my phone. I looked at it and it said Eddie Van Halen on my phone, missed call, which was an amazing thing for me. I was just like, oh my God, that's amazing. You know, just to show that up on your cell phone was that for me was like, that was like God just called you, you know, on the phone. So anyway, but through that, there's a long story that ensued over the next 6 months. Someday I'll tell the story. We did end up talking, you know, I think I called him back and we talked that morning for the first time or whatever. And then I went and met him a few days later, and some fun, interesting things ended up happening. But Jennifer's up in the top chat. She says, thank you again for speaking to the importance and non-issue in seeking therapy for any person, any gender, any reason. There is no shame in asking for help. If anything, it's courage. You're absolutely right. And like when you think about it, it's only right. If you needed, like, I needed guitar lessons. I'm stuck in a rut, you know, I need to, you know, whatever. I've got a dry spot on my skin or whatever. I'll go to a dermatologist, right? I've got, I need a haircut. So I'll go to a person that cuts hair. I've got this issue that I can't seem to move past. It's shyness, but I'm just going to figure it out on my own because I'm fine. You know, no, it's like, go see somebody, you know, don't be shy about it. Don't feel bad. You know, it's okay. You know, you should, it's great to go talk to people when you're having problems and working out. And not with, you know, the problem with talking to friends and stuff is that, number one, they some of them are great. Obviously you need friends to talk to, and some of them can help you through some super hard times. That's great. Family can help you through super hard times. That's great. But they've all, I don't want to say there's an agenda, or they've all got an interest in helping you feel better, you know, and many of them don't have the skills or the answers to do so. So there's a bit of a loaded thing always there with family and friends when you're trying to work on things, right? That's what I find. You know, it's always a little bit, it's never completely impartial. If you pay somebody, if you go to a specialist to tell you what's up, they're going to tell you what's going on. There's no reason to, you know, try and keep the peace with you, or to, you know, oh, I'm trying to alleviate their anxiety. No, there's none of that. It's like you're paying somebody to get to the heart of it. And many times, because they're trained professional, because the funny thing is that most problems in life are a textbook. There's only a few kinds of people and problems. And it's like, they can hone in on your shit if you go to a professional, generally, if they're good in, like, it's quick, you know, and then they're like, okay, I see what's going on here. And then they just start walking you through the steps to, you know, and they don't let you get away with any bullshit, because they don't have to, because it's like, well, you don't want to like what I have to say. It's like, why are you coming to see me? You don't have to pay me then, you know. There's less of a, does that make sense? It's like, that's what I find anyway. I know many of you guys, I feel like I'm lecturing. I shouldn't be, because there's many folks out there that have this all figured out probably way better than I do, you know. But I just believe, all I'm saying is, like, there's no shame, or there never should be. Like, there shouldn't be some stigma in going to somebody to help you out with your mental health or things that you're dealing with. You know, if you're trying to break through a wall, go see a professional. If you're trying to fix your car, you go to the mechanic. You know, if you're trying to get better at guitar, you take guitar lessons. If you're trying to figure out how to be less shy, go to somebody that's a professional that's got the training to really help you out and feel good about it. It's like you're making a good decision. All right, guys, I gotta go pretty soon, but I appreciate you all doing the top chat. Thanks for that. There's 3 folks up there, Jennifer and everybody up there right now. You guys are too kind. I appreciate you all. I do. Let's see. Answer a few more questions here. It always seems that music was the one thing that fixed all that for me, says Yang Nat. I wonder if you're talking about some of the problems that we're talking about, but yeah, music is music is therapeutic. Once the jam started, it all melted away and time was one moment and the stars aligned, blah, blah. That says Yargnat. Yeah, man. Well, the great thing about playing music is you have to be present. When you think about it, we spend so much time lamenting about the past or worrying about the future. Oh, what am I going to do? And whatever. Oh, I should have done this, and things would have been better or whatever. When you're playing music, none of that shit exists. You're there in it right then with the people and the crowd. And that's the beauty. It's like I remember Jimmy Page saying, and it might get loud. He says, those moments we spent on stage, we were totally living. It was total. And that's what he's talking about. He's talking about being present, Led Zeppelin, they were there, like, man, it was like, they were in that moment, completely present. And that's the great experiences I've had on stage. There's been times where I've gotten too in my head on stage and worried, and you're not present because you're worried about bullshit. And then but that's the few and far between, hopefully. Most of the time on stage, you can be having a bad day or something's wrong, or even just practicing guitar. I mean, you can be having a bad day, something's wrong, you're pissed off. But if you sit down and you got a good tone or whatever, and your hands warm up and you're into the instrument, the great thing that I find is I don't even remember what I was mad about or upset about earlier. It's like a mental reset when you're being present, and music's fantastic for that. It pulls you into it's one of the things you can do to make yourself completely present, completely in the moment, and completely alive because of that. You're not lamenting, about the past or worried about the future. You're actually in your life when you're playing music. It's great. Jonathan is in the top chat. He says, is the Golden Pearl enough to push the Friedman small box into metal territory? I would say so. Any other suggestions that will add the needed boost without coloring? That's a good one. Keep in mind that for metal, coloring is not necessarily a bad thing. It's like, because one thing about a boost that adds gain is that many times if they don't whop off low end and if they don't do any coloring, it can just tend to flub the amp out a bit. So that's why like all the proto metal, stuff was treble boosters. That was extremely colored boosts because it pushed the amp in the right frequencies that made it do, heavy tones without farting out. Because you want to distort the low end, you want to distort the top end and the mid-range frequencies and stuff and drive those into overdrive and lots of gain and sustain and stuff without bloating up the low end and blowing it up and making it not tight when you're trying to, generally speaking. I mean, sometimes maybe you do want to blow up the low end and make it loose and stuff. But when I think of metal, what most people want, they seem to, not want the amp to fart out and stuff. And yet they want distortion. So, Golden Pearl, cool pedal, really cool pedal, is kind of a full range drive. So, I use it to just like add a layer of distortion. It's a little bit like a Jan Ray or something in some ways, where it's a full range kind of, thing. And you can layer a bit of that overdrive on top of an amp's substantial overdrive and then end up with a cool tone. But if you really want to kick the shit out of the front end of the amp, that's when I like using treble boosters and stuff. That's just me. Clean Chugs says tasty clees. Yeah, exactly. Everyone have an amazing day, says Lawrence. He's out of here. I hope you have a good day too. And Ben Coombs, did you send me a t-shirt this week? I think you did. I went and got it. It was at the post office. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. That's why I love the Cocoa Boost so much, as Ben Van Geest. Yeah, I agree. The Cocoa Boost is a fantastic boost to take a heavy, an already sort of distorted tone over the top and give it the mid range and recently, if you guys haven't seen the they're still building their channel, but Cosmo Music up in Canada has a YouTube channel, and they put out some videos recently of me when I was up there doing sort of demos, loose demos of my amp, as well as a few of the pedals. And one of them is the Cocoa Boost. I talk about the Cocoa Boost in the video quite a bit, and I use it and I show what I like about it because I'm playing through a cab and I show how it drives the amp into a great sustain and feedback. It just makes the note scream on the neck. So check out the Cosmo videos. Go to Cosmo Music, and you'll see some recent videos there with me, as well as there's a summary, kind of like a quick, overview of my clinic that I do, the recording clinic I do. I didn't want them to put up too much because I still want people to come to the clinic when I'm doing one in their area. So I asked that the video just be a short, kind of almost like a commercial for the clinic, an overview of things. But you can see a little bit of what I do in the recording and production for the Modern Guitarist Clinic if you're interested in the Cosmo Music videos. So please check those out. Brett Holman says, awesome time at Cosmo. I guess he was there. That's awesome. Thank you, sir. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Guthrie Govan loves the Cocoa Boost. Yes, he does. Inherent part of his sound. I remember he's been using it for a long time. Dwayne McKnight is asking, any new choruses, like chorus pedals? Nothing that I have here right now recently. Probably the most recent chorus pedal video I did was for the Alexa, the Sir pedal. Speaking of boosts, says Scott, any chance you'll get to do demos of the new exotic boosts? Look what I have. Ask and you shall receive. This is the Super Clean. There's another one I have here over there as well. I don't know if they want me to make videos yet or not, but they sent me a couple of these to check out. They seem really cool. The Super Clean is like just a more, kind of like a more pedal. I'm not sure exactly what they do, but it does seem to make just any clean sound better. Just, boosted and clearer and the whole 9 yards. It does sound pretty good. So, yeah. All right. Let's see here. What we got? Doc IC says, thanks, Pete. What a fun way to spend a couple hours on a Sunday when it's not football season. Thanks for being here. Peter P says, have I ever been produced music video with an artist or former band? Have I ever been in a produced music video? So many. Tons. The funny thing about being in music videos that you find when you work as a sideman and you make videos, I was in the Arms Around Your Love video by Chris Cornell. You can see a little bit of me in there. I was in the Blink of the Star video and the album was called September already. What was the song called? I don't even remember the name of the song, but I was in a Blink of the Star music video once. You don't ever really see me. I was in a video with a pop duo named Evan and Jaron once. You don't really see me, maybe a little in that one. The funny part about being in music videos is, at least the way they used to exist, is you'll go there for 12 hours and you'll do a long ass day and lots of reshoots and all kinds of, and generally speaking, then you're not in the video. You'll end up on the cutting room floor. You're like, wait a minute. You might see like a shot of your, for a split second of you, and that's it. So yeah, I'm in a bunch of videos for a split second that you probably would never even realize it was me. Here's a good one. You want to know what I was in? I was in a movie once. I'm in the worst movie ever made, which was Coyote Ugly. You guys know that movie, Coyote Ugly? That movie was so bad. So if you watch the last scene in Coyote Ugly, I'm the guitar player in the bar playing with the chick that is, the singer, and in the movie. And so it was funny how that happened. I could tell the story of that. Okay, I'll tell the story as quick as I can. I got called. My friend Trace Ritter was in the movie. He'd shot the movie originally, and then they were still doing reshoots in that movie, which is always a telltale sign that maybe there's problems. But they were doing reshoots like 3 weeks before the movie was released to theaters. And the one thing that they did was they changed the song at the end of the movie. They wanted to use this Leanne Rimes song called "Can't Fight the Moonlight" instead of whatever song that they'd used. So they recut that scene. And so they called everybody back to reshoot the scene. But my friend Trace was originally the guitar player that was in the band in the scene in that movie. And he had already gone on the road. He used to have a band called Chalk Farm that he was in. And he was like in New York. He's like, sorry, I'm on tour. Like, I can't make it back. And so they're freaking out and trying to find somebody. Well, I kind of look like him. Same sort of build, had the same haircut. We're both guitar players, whatever. And so they were looking for somebody. He said, call my friend Pete. He'll be a great sub for me, because the thing was they wanted to still use some of the shots from the original shoot, like long shots from the bar and stuff. They thought we don't have to reshoot that stuff because it's just like the band in the distance and the bar, like they'd shoot from, you know what I'm saying? So anyway, it was all the close-ups that they needed to reshoot. So they call me and I learned the song and went down, like, the, you know, casting director saw me and went, great, he plays, he looks just the same. He plays guitar. It's like, yeah, I play guitar. I learned the song. I don't know. It's not that hard to act like you're playing guitar, but I guess they thought that was cool. So anyway, I go down for the first day of shooting. And I remember like sitting around for about 10 hours or 8 hours and eating a lot of craft service and never getting called to work. But it was like a, you know, full day where we basically would hurry up and wait. We sat around, didn't do anything. And then I went back the next day and actually worked. I remember like, okay, kind of like making a music video was what it felt like. Shooting, reshooting, doing lots of, you know, and it was like, I remember it being about a 10 or a 12-hour day. And I remember that they delayed our lunch by an hour or something, you know, because they wanted to keep shooting, keep momentum going. And so we finally went, I didn't even notice, but we went and finally ate lunch or whatever, and then came back. And I remember at the end of the day going, okay, I actually worked today. But like music video shooting, you know, it's not that hard. You're up there acting like you're playing guitar. It's hot. It's a lot of sitting around. It's a lot of hurry up and wait, basically. I got my first check from that, and it was like, I don't know, like close to $5 grand, $4,500 or something I got in the mail. I was like, that was a lot of money to me at that point. I was like, holy shit, you know, like, and then the money has come ever since, you know. But what I found out was, anyway, I found out you can make more money acting like a guitar player than you can be a guitar player. From that day. One of the things was they delayed the lunch an hour, and SAG is such a great union that they've got all these rules in place when things like that happen. And so because of the delayed lunch, I made more money. And because of overtime pay, because we went like 12 hours and overtime's anything over 8, I guess, or something, I made overtime like however much that is. And I was getting SAG day player rate. I wasn't paid like an extra. I was paid the next step up, which is like one under a speaking role, SAG day player. I don't know. And it's the gift that keeps on giving. I still get checks from doing that. I think that was my only like movie acting gig but yeah, if you watch the last scene in Coyote Ugly, there I am. It was such a bad movie. I think I paid to go see it in the movie theater. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm in this movie, but I'm in that movie. True story. The Bone Daryl is in the top chat. He said, any interest in starting your own band or joining a band as a permanent member? I would, dude, if it's the right band, I'm all about it. I'm still waiting for somebody to figure out I can write songs. It's like I put out these demos, these pedals, and they all start with a song, and there's hundreds of songs out there, and I'm waiting for somebody to come along and go, this guy's a pretty good writer. We should get him in our band. Like, you know, I don't want to join a band at this point in my life unless it's like established and like doing really well and that kind of thing. Then I would do it, you know, but I'm waiting for somebody to come along that feels like they could maybe use somebody that can write some guitar riffs and, you know, some cool, I don't know, because I can do that. So thanks for asking. I appreciate, and thanks for doing the top chat. What would my ideal gig be with? You know, like, I don't know. I'd love to be in a great rock band right now. Whoever's still out, you know, playing that's playing anything from metal to hard rock to, you know, experimental, you know, so I don't know, you know, I'd love to. I'm still, you know, I would love to go on the road with a band like Muse or, you know, that wants a second guitar player. So they don't need that. Obviously they don't do it, but something like that. You know, Foo Fighters, you know, a rock band that needs a guitar player. I would love to be a part of something, and barring that, yeah, I'd love to do my own thing and do, like I talked about a little bit here, I'd love to do a bit of my own touring if I can put that together this year and figure it out. It makes sense. I talked to a friend of mine that's a great guitar player that's got a great record coming out. It's kind of similar to my music, and he brought up like, hey, maybe we should do a tour. And I was like, I don't have a lot of stuff going on this year on the touring front, so maybe that's something I should just make it. You know, it's kind of like in this day and age, you know, you can make so much happen on your own, and there's no reason why I shouldn't be doing that stuff, going out and doing some touring and stuff. So, you know, I'll be thinking about it. Yeah. Jerry says he's an idiot. He did the top chat incorrectly. You're not an idiot, Jerry. It's okay. You are not. You are not. All this newfangled technology. What's the maximum time I had to stop playing guitar because of an arm or hand problem? Probably, I've gone through periods. Actually, when I went to MI, I was having issues. I was going to a chiropractor for a bit. Ibuprofen ended up helping a lot. I just took ibuprofen for a couple weeks and stuff daily, and it helped. I've had left. No significant amount of time where I've stopped though. I would just say I've backed off and tried to, treat it a little bit. But Ricardo's up in the top chat. He says, no question, just to express my appreciation for your share of knowledge. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Thanks for being here. I know I'm running over here, but it's just I'm enjoying the questions and enjoying the chat and stuff. So I'm just going. But I'll probably give it another 5 minutes here or something, and I'll jet. Steve says he wasn't in a film, but his old band has 2 tracks being used in a B movie that was just released called Dead Ant. That's awesome. Hey, anything you can do. It's great to get songs out there that, rather than just sitting there not used, right? Awesome unions are needed more than ever, says Marsman. I agree. We never, did you meet Piper, says William? Yeah, I did, because I had to shoot all the scenes with her. So we were, and we did that whole thing together that day. So it was good. It was like an easy, fun shoot. But then I saw the movie and it was like not a good movie, but whatever. Anyway, she was very nice. Everybody involved was professionals. Awesome unions are needed more than ever. I agree. The one thing I never had as a touring musician was a union. The musicians union doesn't help you out if you're in a touring. It's supposed to, but it doesn't. And the reality is, many times like you'd go to, I always thought it was funny when you go to New York City or something and do a gig at, the Roseland Ballroom or something. And you'd be there at sound check and be like, oh, well, we got to stop in 5 minutes because it's dark stage. What's that? And it's like all the unionized stage hands, the local guys, it's all so locked down, the union stuff there. And, dark stage, you can't have anybody making noise, anybody on stage doing anything and stuff. It's like a mandated break for whatever reason and stuff. And I thought, there's all these rules and all these people in this place working right now are all unionized, except for the musicians that are going to do the show tonight. Nobody has none of those people have a union looking out for them, make sure that they get paid, make sure that, healthcare and the whole 9 yards. It's just bullshit. But the union is great if you're if you're a session musician that is making a living doing nothing but union recording sessions, or you're in a symphony, and beyond that, forget it. Didn't do shit for me. You should write a book, seriously, says James. I would. I don't know. But what though? What would I write about? IRs and speaker simulation by Pete Thorn. If you joined a band, no more chats and vids, says James. That's not true. Look at Phil X. He's in Bon Jovi, and he does these all the time. He does his like Twitter airport question hangouts, and he would probably do this if he did. I don't see why he wouldn't. He would probably do this once in a while in his own great way. He probably just doesn't know about it, or Anyway, any news on your ISO cab video, says Preston Smith. What's that? ISO cab video. What was I going to do? Was I going to make an ISO cab video? I talked this week with somebody at Tour Supply about possibly making an ISO cab video. I wonder if that's the one you're talking about, but I'm not sure. Anyway, what cap do I recommend in a Strat for tone pot? I don't know. What is it? A 0047 or something? Is that the one that I like? I'd have to ask Sir. I have one that I like, and I don't know which one it is. I think it's a 0047. Does that make sense? Or an 047? Yeah. Still reading here. Yeah, I know. So Mark says, you're in luck, Pete. Your name doesn't appear in the IMDb page for Coyote Ugly. I know it says Trace because I was just on the reshoots, but it's me in the movie. You'll see. If you were to watch it, don't do it. Don't watch. I don't want you to. Are there insurance plans tailored for musicians? No. I mean, the union offers some sort of insurance that's probably way too expensive or whatever through, the standard. I just have to be honest, I do my insurance through standard, Kaiser, and that's it. I'm on the same plans as, I just, I have to pay for a personal plan. That's it. And it's hard. You gotta, that's what I was saying this week, maybe the pro musician video, maybe I should do one on, starting a IRA and paying for healthcare and things like that. I don't know. It might be a good one because you got to do all those things when you're. I know so many musicians that don't have health insurance, or no retirement plan. They're in the 40s or whatever, no nothing. The musicians come to it late. It's like you get I find a lot of my friends, it's similar. Some of them did it early on, but they're the smart ones. Many of them like wait late, and then in their 40s, they finally start going, I got to what am I going to do in like 20 years? And they start, a retirement account and finally like think about owning a home and like getting it together. But we come to it kind of 10 or 15 years after everybody else many times, I find, because we spent our 20s being knuckleheads and like trying to, be rock stars or whatever. And, eventually you wake up and hopefully it's not too late, but maybe I think it's a good topic for So You Want to Be a Pro Musician video is like, consider this stuff. Consider if you're in your mid 20s, like starting to put money away and thinking about, paying yourself off the top 10% of whatever you make, putting that away, get, and make sure your health care is squared away and stuff. You got to deal with it, All right, guys. Well, I should probably split, I guess. I really appreciate you being here every week, and I appreciate you doing the top chat. All you guys is awesome. You're all too kind, and everybody comes here and hangs every week. We have 436 people online. It was averaging around that for the whole show. I think that's awesome. Videos coming this week for the once again the Kraken. I did a cool heavy track with this where I busted out the Explorer for the first time in many years. And I'm using this into the PT15 amplifier, and it sounds really cool. I also used the Countess for one part in the song, so that'll be coming from Victory Amps, my friend Mick over the pond, from Dan and Mick, from the That Pedal Show. That's right. What else I got coming? I don't know. I got a slew of pedals to get to. Seymour Duncan, Cab Sim from Nux. All kinds of stuff coming this week, and I'll do another pro musician video for Wednesday, so that'll be up on Wednesday. So you'll want to be a pro musician. All right, please hit the thumbs up. Please hit subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and you guys have a terrific week. Take care.